Chang, Gilliam, Kurtz, Marsh, Randall, Shabazz, Tibbet, Council President. We have a quorum. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll now have invocation by Honorable Councilman William Marsh.
If I can take this opportunity, I would like Imam Amin to do the invocation, if you can help me with that, because I think it's something of unity. And would you come up and do the invocation for us tonight?
Do we have
Totally unprepared.
You're never unprepared.
Let us pray. God, we ask you to give this council the wisdom and the judgment to legislate over the people in justice, to give them everything that makes them prosperous in this world. We ask you to bless our city, bless our residents, give us unity, unite our hearts. Let us forget hardships that went before us and make us look for a better future for Atlantic City. Amen.
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 Thank you.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided as required by law by the city clerk, sending to the press and the Philadelphia Inquirer on January 6, 2017, and published on January 9, 2017, and to the Star Ledger on January 19, 2017, and published on January 21, 2017, a list of the meetings for the Council of the City of Atlantic City, including notice of the meeting scheduled for November 15, 2017 at 5 p.m. in the Hank Tyner Council Chambers, Room 206, City Hall, 1301 Bacharach Boulevard. And also a copy of said notice was posted by the city clerk on the bulletin board, main lobby, first floor on same date. All of the aforesaid complies with NJSA 10:4-6 et sec, known as the Senator Byron M. Baer Open Public Meetings Law, and NJSA 40:69A-179. This is the regular council meeting of the City Council of Atlantic City. Before we begin, please be aware of our rules in this chamber. All persons are to be seated unless all seats are filled, in which case you may stand against the wall in orderly fashion. We are asking that all gentlemen remove their hats. All persons are to remain quiet during these proceedings. This is so that everyone is able to hear what is going on. Please turn off all cell phones or set them to silent. No one shall speak unless they are invited to do so by the council president. Shouting, interrupting, speaking out of turn, or acting disorderly in any fashion will not be tolerated, and anyone doing so will be removed from the meeting. When and if you are invited to the microphone to speak, state your name and address. You will be allotted 3 minutes for comment. Please respect the time for other persons and end your speech within the 3 minutes allowed. If it is your intention to ask a question of council, you will be permitted to ask a maximum of 2 questions. Your questions are to be clearly stated, and after the questions are asked, you are to take your seat. The council president will determine if the question can be answered and by whom. Finally, please understand that there will be no personal attacks or name calling. If you do so, your time will immediately be cut short and you may be asked to leave. Reports and recommendations from the mayor. Ordinances number 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30 of 2017 were signed by the mayor on October 19th, 2017. Council President, have we any committee reports?
Yes. Council President, Planning and Development Committee had their regular meeting on November the 8th, and there are 3 items, 623, 626, and 627, that I would ask my colleagues to support. They are grant items. They do not require any taxpayer money. Also, on our agenda, we discussed in the meeting is license agreement from Tropicana. Tropicana wants to build a bridge, a walk across from the Chelsea Hotel into Tropicana, and I have been informed by their council if we can move on this expeditiously, that they will do the same, and we can hope to see that bridge in short order. Also, we have a discharge of a mortgage, which is something that we do routinely on the agenda, and a license agreement to reconstruct 3901 Ventnor Avenue, which is going to be a new business in the area that we would ask for support. Also, Mr. President, I have put in a resolution regarding Ginsburg Bakery, 631. I would ask my colleagues to support. CRDA wants to obtain that property, which is at 300 North Tennessee Avenue, and I am asking the council to support this resolution against that for several reasons, but mainly because the residents are against that kind of intrusion in the area, and secondly, because that property pays $100,000 in property tax, and if CRDA is able to obtain it, that's going to deduct that money from our budget, which obviously we can't afford. So I would ask for support on 631. That's my report, Mr. President.
Council President. Public Safety met Wednesday, November the 8th, and we had 3 items that we discussed. One of the items was to discuss increasing the fees for tow vehicles, for moving middle vehicles from the marshland. We use our own city vehicles to remove those cars that run off the side of the road that go over into the marshland, and that's really expensive, and we've been using Atlantic City's Public Works to do that overtime or whatever it requires. So we're just discussing the fees. The chief was there, so whenever it comes up, you know, we'll have all the details on that. We also discussed the walk, all the incidents on the walk. The chief's having a meeting this week, I think it's this week or next week, with the merchants. We're having a lot of theft on the walk, and we've been working diligently trying to resolve some of that, bringing the merchants in. So that was discussed, and it'll be a public bid for installations of security cameras in Browns Park, and that will be coming up on November the 28th. So those items were discussed at Public Safety. We do not have Public Works, and I'd like to see Director Jerkins, maybe he'll tell us why. So that's my report. Thank you.
I don't have a written report, but I just have a resolution 599, and I think all the employees, it's an incentive program for a tier opportunity for our staff. But the thing I'm most concerned about is that all employees have had an opportunity to have it explained to them, and they'll have the option as to what to do, and also if you're not in it for this set period of time, that there will be some consequences to that. But it's for Councilman, it's 599. It's a tier program for health benefits. Anything you want to add, Doreen? I mean, Director.
Covering as well, we did a extensive communication campaign and information and email blast. So it does provide incentives, so the commitment is a 2-year commitment, and you decide to go through those plans in order to get the financial incentive the first quarter in 2018.
How's the response so far?
So far, we have probably about 72 people who have signed up for that plan. And as you know, we have probably about 40% of the people who were on 10 have moved over to 15, and we're expecting that number to increase between them until this Friday.
Okay, and the deadline?
The deadline
For
to get it in is this Friday.
Okay.
So if anyone who has not completed their form, or if you didn't have any changes, you don't have to worry about it. You would just go right into what you currently have. If you want to take advantage of any of the incentive plans, then we need to make sure you get those applications into us by Friday.
And for any additional questions, they can come
They
through
can
HR?
always give us a call.
All right, thank you for your diligence and the things you brought to this City Hall and to your staff here and the employees.
Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure.
The Licensing and Inspections, Health Human Services Technology Committee, we were not able to meet, so we rescheduled for next month. As a result, ordinance number 14E, like Edward, I'm going to table at the appropriate time. We need some discussion on that in committee. There is an item that is new business that came out of some of the work we were doing to enact the passed last year. And so as a result, there is a new business resolution tonight, which basically says that, yes, we are authorizing the city to go forward with the kind of mandate of the Transparency Act to put our meetings online. And so as a formality, and that's a new business resolution that was offered this evening. And aside from that, there are some jitney license transfers and standard renewals that come out of our area, and that is my report.
Revenue and Finance, on the agenda is the agreement with the state for transitional aid. Also, not on the agenda, but what we did it through administrative action, which I'm sure many people who come to this chamber and many people that are watching on television, we have authorized the purchase for a new public address system for the whole city council chamber, the mics on the dais, administration table, and new speakers. And it's state of the art. This product is used at the United Nations. You see several state legislatures that use this type of system, so it'll be an improvement. So even if you sit in the second row sometimes, you're saying, what they're saying, and especially on TV, the complaints that we got through the years, so we were able to get that done. All right, move the agenda.
Council President?
Yeah, sorry.
Just before you move on, it's not my committee, but another children's organization is having problems now. The Art Dorrington Foundation, they're good for this year, but long-term status is getting very difficult for them. And as you know, the Art Dorrington Foundation, hockey's a very expensive sport. And if you guys remember, we had a settlement with the Philadelphia Flyers skate zone over at for their tax appeals, where we did a pilot, a payment in lieu of taxes, and part of that agreement was 1 hour a week for the local kids of Atlantic City. And we all voted and agreed upon that in the back and in front here, that be in the settlement. Well, when I helped Mrs. Dorrington, Art Dorrington's wife, or excuse me, his daughter, to tell her this is something, because ice is the most expensive, it's about $500 an hour. And if we could take care of the ice, to keep that program going for a very long time. Come to find out, somebody from this administration took out that settlement that we voted for and approved, the hour that was supposed to go to those kids. We also told the Flyer Skate Zone that we wouldn't take it in your busy season, that we would take it during the off season where it wouldn't hurt them as much, and we could move to get the kids. So, I'd like our attorney to find out, is that legal that once we vote on a settlement, for somebody to go and take that settlement and change it without first coming back? Because here we go, another children's program that needs help, and we're in a position to help, and we screwed them over again because somebody changed the tax, the settlement that we voted on. We agreed and we voted on that.
Well, I definitely agree with you. But one of the things that I don't agree is they should be able to use it, anytime. Not, busy season, because I took advantage of that. We used to take kids there every Friday. So I can't speak for anything on this side. I can't speak to anything as far as changing contracts, but I'm going to ask our attorney and the VA and the solicitor, since it's a legal agreement, to look into who put that provision out.
Well, I just read the agreement. I just read the agreement last week. We were supposed to have already started, and we didn't yet. For 2016, we were supposed to start negotiating for their taxes for 17 and 18, which didn't start. Please, don't start not to the end of the year. Just leave it alone at this point, we'll handle it. But the fact that something has changed, once we vote on a settlement, and it goes upstairs and they change it, I'm gonna find out if that's legal to do.
It's not legal, but more importantly, who had the responsibility of making sure that the children took advantage of the program? Was it a memo farmed out to all the various youth organizations to say once a week, and work with a time slot that, things could be done like that?
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be some
Yeah.
systematic approach. And as far as programming, you can't just say, okay, everybody go there once a week. It has to be some type of organization.
No, absolutely, and that's just it. Now that it's needed, it's not there to take advantage of over there, and that's the problem. It would really help the Art Dorrington Foundation. That program has grown to almost 50 kids out there. And what's funny is you don't just get to play hockey. You have to go there, you have to do your homework, you have to work with the tutors that they have before you even get a chance to step on that ice. So he's also teaching them responsibility and everything else that goes along with it. If you want to get out there and you want to play, you have to do all that stuff, which is a great mentoring program, which leads me to, election stuff's over, silly season's over, and it's something that we need to get on. These kids programs are competing for donations from the community, and now they're competing with one. I'm going to just say it, the Police Foundation. Over $37,000 went to that program, and every year Mrs. Burke made sure $7,000 went to each and every program, the Boys and Girls Club, the PAL, the baseball leagues. And I'm getting calls constantly that they're not getting the money. And I want to get to the bottom of it, and I think the committee has got to be put together, because if they're going to go out there and compete for the same donation dollars that our kids' programs need, then we need to take it out of their budget and replace that money to the kids' programs. Because our kids, I go to my house today, and my neighbors are yelling at me because I have 7 or 8 kids that don't live around there come there and play basketball because I got a glass backboard and everything else. Because our playgrounds are locked up, and we still got the prison-style backboards in Chelsea Heights Playground. That's one of the only 2 places in Atlantic City that did not get the first class up-to-date backboards. And we had that money in CDBG, but the program was never completed. I think it's Martin Luther King and School and Chelsea Heights School. So, I mean, we got to come right out of the box as a unit, taking care of these kids, helping them with the donation dollars. And if the programs out there that are collecting these monies aren't getting it to them, we got to do something about it as a team, as a group.
Now, point of information, actually, thank you, Councilman Tibbet, for bringing up that point. To piggyback on what he's saying about the ice hockey, I know from personal experience it's important for whoever is going to do those negotiations to start them now, because the ice time that the Dorrington program will needs to be fit into the season schedule. And even though the season is for next fall, management starts doing the schedule grid like in January. And in the past, through my involvement with the Dorrington program, I know sometimes it's been tough to get ice time that works for our kids. And so for those who are going to be doing the negotiation, if that could happen ASAP, and that Dorrington, especially if they're entitled to a prime hour of ice in the season, it would be important to get it in the grid where it makes sense for us. And then with what you were talking about, Council President, I think that's a separate thing where if there's another item that was put in that agreement for generic groups, different groups, or different residents, that would be actually another hour of ice during the off time. So we might, if I'm hearing you guys right, there might be 2 hours of ice, which is very valuable. So I think that's definitely something important to pursue.
I just don't think, regardless whether it's a busy season or not a busy season, they should be able to play year-round. And it should be based on no financial commitments or nothing like that. It should be based on the need for our kids to be out there. So I think that's something we should, if it was taken out, if it was not a part of negotiation, it should be, because it should be year-round. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
It's not hurting nobody.
And if you look at the leagues, I'd be very perfect. My kid does not play there. We play out of Brick in Coral Springs, Florida. We don't spend 1 minute there. It's not about my kid before people start to say that. But understand something. There's 1 kid in that program from the city of Atlantic City. And the taxpayers of Atlantic City are absorbing the cost for a program that's owned by the Philadelphia Flyers. So, I mean, I don't mind helping, but I think there should be more county help, since these kids are from, I'm telling you, Jesse will back me up on this, there's 1 kid from Atlantic City that plays in their sports program over there. The county should be contributing towards what they're not paying in taxes. And state law, and we've already did this case once, just because it's city property, it's a for-profit business on city property, they still gotta pay something towards their taxes on the building. So, I mean, whether it has to go to court or not, these big corporations cannot keep coming into town and taking from us, especially with the pilot now where it's the casinos and it's us paying. Every time someone doesn't pay their fair share of taxes now, it comes on the homeowners and the small businesses. So we have to be careful that every pilot we give out now is really beneficial to the city and really look at it, because it's us that are gonna pay that, not the casinos.
Council President, I suggest if possible, given that this is potentially a break in the actual cycle of income or revenue dealing with CDBG, maybe we could freeze all payments going out from CDBG, do a year's audit to find out where monies have went, because my understanding is quite a few new organizations were created, had a lot of public fanfare to support development in other areas of the city, and if those funds should have been allocated for our children's use and diverted to these developmental programs, then we have to make sure that we make whole what's been fractured.
I'm of the opinion that, we can't stop payment, so to speak, on the whole CDBG process, because as I stated 2 meetings ago, in order to get funds in 2018, you have to apply in 2017. So it's a year in advance. Those projects have already been rewarded. And as you know, if you don't spend the money, you lose the money. It can cause, a negative impact on the whole CDBG program. So that's something that, you have to look at moving forward. There's no way to stop that process now. And we've already had our fair share of issues with CDBG in the past. So moving forward for the following fiscal year, those new organizations that want to apply, they have to do it then.
Well, Council President, I'm in the ones who believe that given the traditional ways of doing things and waiting to the end of the year sometimes to pay a majority of both that we've done in the past to give opportunities around widespread, I think we still have a window and opportunity to do that and still meet that requirement for next year. Because in essence, I think the issues we've had in the past is to ensure that we're financially prudent, to make sure everything, all our T's are crossed and all our I's are dotted. And then to do so, I would imagine that it shows that we're trying to show fiscal responsibility and we're showing that all our programs are covered the way we proposed in year prior to, and to have new organizations come in and possibly take revenue that was supposed to be allocated for the youth programs. I think it's just somewhat of a bold step towards breaking that contract that we've already had as far as us receiving the funds and what we're supposed to do with it.
Mr. President, before we start, can I, after you finish,
No, I was going to move the agenda.
I just want to make a quick statement before we start.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'll start at the end of my statement. The end of my statement would be that the eyes of New Jersey are on Atlantic City because of the unique situation that we find ourselves in. And I think all of us here on this dais can agree that we want to move from state takeover to partnership back to self-government. And I think it's very important how we move forward. Now, having said that, I wanted to congratulate Councilman Gilliam on his successful election as our new mayor-elect, Councilman Tibbetts on his successful re-election, Councilman Delgado on his successful re-election, and our new Councilman-elect Jeffrey Fauntleroy, who's in the audience. And I also wanted to recognize our newly elected freeholder at large, Ms. Fitzpatrick, who was here. And I think it's very important, Council President, I know we're all in agreement that we want to give Governor-elect Murphy the backing of a council that is working together and moving forward together so that he can do what he said he was going to do on the campaign trail, which was to overturn the takeover, have a partnership, and move in the process towards self-governance. And today is the first step in that direction. I believe that he's going to do that, and I know that we want that, and I know that the audience can speak for themselves, but I know that everybody wants us where we are self-governing and not dictated and handheld and overlooked by the state. So I wanted to say that congratulations to my colleagues and to the freeholder at large and to the citizens. I think, I can't predict the future. We know who holds the future, but I think 2018 is going to be a banner year for Atlantic City.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Jeffrey says it's a beautiful day.
Communications and petitions are listed on the agenda and will not be read into the record. That brings us to resolutions of recognition.
For the people who are not here, but the items are listed on the agenda, Can we please group those, some of the sponsors that sponsored these resolutions and recognitions, please? Can you let us know who's not here?
Okay. Mr. President, I did a resolution for the new president of Cape Atlantic, who's the first African-American and the first woman. She is not here, but the dean of the Worthington campus is here to receive the form.
Okay, I just need to know who's here.
Okay.
So can you please let the clerk know who's not here?
Yes, sir, Mr. President.
And I'm going to designate that responsibility to you, because this is all your work right here.
Some of it is.
Man,
Are the
please.
Blackwells here?
Ms. Blackwell?
Speak.
I don't think she's here.
No, sir.
Blackwell?
I don't know whether anyone's here for her.
Sawyers?
Yes,
Sam
Sam
Sawyer,
Sawyer.
yes.
Leslie Corsi?
Yes, I'm gonna take hers.
Is she here?
No, she's not here. I'm gonna take hers. Michael Scott, I think.
Dorit Links?
Not here?
The Whiskey Bar?
Not here?
That's not Mr.
The Tayyoun family?
Here?
Here.
And Q Gant for military service?
Anyone here from the Gantt family?
I thought I saw the son.
Anyone here from the Gantt family?
Okay.
And Mr. Bethia on a scholarship.
He's here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And Paul, since it's only a few items as far as new business resolutions, I would like to group those as well, so we can just get that portion out.
I put 6:30 from new business.
Okay, all right, no problem.
Is that okay?
Are we grouping that to vote on it, or grouping it to add it to?
Those will be the grouping of the recognition resolutions only.
Or the new ones?
The ones that are not here.
Everyone who's not here.
So may I have a motion to vote on the resolutions
Move it.
of recognition?
Second.
For the people that's not here, moved by Randolph, second by Shabazz. Call a vote.
Okay, so we will be voting right now on the grouping of Resolution 590, and that's condolence to the Vernon E. Blackwell family. Resolution 593 for Leslie White Corsi. Resolution 596, to condolence to the family of Dorit Links. 597, recognizing the Iron Room as the best whiskey bar. And Resolution 628, recognizing Q Gant for military service. Chang?
Yes.
Delgado?
Yes.
Gilliam?
Yes.
Kurtz?
Yes.
Marsh?
Yes.
Randolph?
Yes.
Shabazz?
Yes.
Tibbet?
Yes.
And Small.
Yes.
That's 9 in the affirmative. So our first resolution is Resolution 589, and this is a resolution of support and recognition for National Adoption Month.
Move
That
it.
motion? Moved by Gilliam,
Second.
second by Kurtz. Questions, discussions, call a vote.
Would you like me to read this into the record or just?
Yes, you can read it.
Whereas there are millions of unparented children in the world, including hundreds of thousands of children in the foster care system in the United States, with many waiting for families to adopt them. And whereas for many foster children, the wait for a loving family in which the children are nurtured, comforted, and protected seems endless. Thousands of youth age out of foster care by reaching adulthood without being placed in a permanent home. And whereas every day loving and nurturing families are strengthened and expanded when committed and dedicated individuals make an important difference in the life of a child through adoption. And whereas a 2007 survey conducted by the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption demonstrated that although Americans overwhelmingly support the concept of adoption, and in particular foster care adoptions have not increased significantly. Foster care adoptions have not increased significantly over the past 5 years. And whereas while nearly a quarter of individuals in the United States have considered adoption, a majority of individuals in the United States have misperceptions about the process of adopting children from foster care and the children who are eligible for adoption. And whereas the vast majority of children who have entered the foster care system were victims of neglect, abandonment, or abuse, not because of juvenile delinquency. And whereas too many people in the United States believe that foster care adoption is expensive, when in reality there is no substantial cost for adopting from foster care, and financial support is available to adoptive parents after the adoption is finalized. And whereas family reunification, kinship care, and domestic and inter-county adoption promote permanency and stability to a far greater degree than long-term institutionalization or long-term, often disrupted foster care. And whereas November is National Adoption Month and National Adoption Day occurs on November 19th. National Adoption Day is a collective national effort to find permanent loving families for children in the foster care system. And whereas since the first National Adoption Day in 2000, nearly 58,500 children have joined permanent families during National Adoption Day. And now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the City of Atlantic City hereby supports the goals and ideals of National Adoption Day and National Adoption Month and recognizes that every child should have a permanent and loving family. Be it further resolved that City Council encourages the people of the United States to consider adoption during the month of November and throughout the year for health, safety, and well-being of all children. Cheng.
Yes.
Delgado.
Yes.
Gilliam.
Yes.
Kurtz.
Yes.
Marsh.
Yes.
Randolph.
Yes.
Shabazz.
Yes.
Tibbet.
Yes.
And Small.
Yes.
That's 9 in the affirmative, and we have a presentation.
Anyone? Oh.
Hi. The microphone if you'd like to speak.
Excuse me. Yes, sir.
Stress.
Oh, my fault. Adoption is a beautiful gift. It's a sacrifice that birth parents can make. It's just to afford a child a better opportunity. I can't really find the words as someone that's been adopted to try and articulate what it means to have divine providence to be even here. Lots of kids need to be adopted, but they just don't find their way here in this country, outside this country. And my heart goes out to them. So just the awareness this month and on November 19th means much for the cause, because there's been kind of a misunderstanding of what adoption is. I grew up in a household where my mom was worked for an adoption placement agency, actually 2 of them. My own sister was adopted. And I just remember we'd have these holiday parties throughout the year where all these families would get together, and they would share stories about what it was like having an adopted child themselves, and even at a young age, seeing all these kids from all different parts of the world. Chile, like where I'm from, Guatemala, Mexico, China, Russia, parts of Western Europe. They all had wonderful stories, and the opportunities that were given to them. I stay in touch with a couple of them, and one's a lawyer, another's a doctor. They're doing great things, so the opportunities that they're given to the kids that are adopted is huge. So just to keep in your hearts and minds the option of adoption is what this month is all about. So thank you for this year, and thank you for the opportunity to share these remarks.
Council President, if you don't mind, I think something we have to also emphasize the fact that adoption is an option, not necessarily exercised as much within people of color. And we have so many children who are in the system itself per se, because they're not given the opportunities. God bless you, sad to say, and get lost in the cycle. They're lost in the system itself, and they don't get to have these wonderful stories like Brother Tanucci has said, and it's our solution. So it's a wonderful opportunity for whoever family is available to adopt. Let's make sure that if we can, every child deserves a home. So, we got plenty of children in the United States that don't have a home. So if we can afford them and any other child on the planet a home, then we're doing what we should be doing. Correct? So thank you.
Okay. We have Resolution 591, and this is a resolution of condolence to the family of Samuel Sawyer.
May I have a motion?
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Randolph, second by Shabazz.
Whereas Samuel Sawyer was born on August 12, 1939 in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and departed this life on October 21, 2017. And whereas growing up in Atlantic City, Sam discovered his passion for the sport of basketball, playing in the yard at the old Pennsylvania Avenue School. He played for Atlantic City High School from 1957 to 1958, where his team broke ACHS records. they were unstoppable. And whereas in 1964, Sam was invited to play for the Washington Generals by the team's owner, Louis Red Klotz. Sam traveled the world playing basketball and had the honor of being one of few players to play for both Harlem Globetrotters and the Washington Generals. Sam, with his natural ability, proved to be a truly amazing athlete. He was also a role model who inspired, mentored, and encouraged young people to pursue their dreams and achieve success. And whereas, after his basketball career, Sam took great pleasure working as a dealer at the Foxwoods Resort Casino in Connecticut. And whereas the Council of the City of Atlantic City desires to pay tribute to the life and legacy of Samuel Sawyer, and hereby recognizes his many significant contributions and achievements. And now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the City of Atlantic City hereby joins in the mourning of the passing of the legendary Samuel Sawyer and expresses heartfelt condolences to his family during their time of bereavement. Chang?
Yes.
Delgado?
Yes.
Gilliam?
Yes.
Kurtz?
Yes.
Marsh?
Yes.
Randolph?
Yes.
Shabazz?
Yes.
Tibbet?
Yes.
And Small.
Yes.
That's 9 in the affirmative, and we have a presentation.
Hello, my name is Erica Moore, and I'm here with my sister Jamaica Moore, his daughter Sean Phillips is in the back, and my mother Karen Sawyer. I just want to thank the City of Atlantic City for your condolences, and also thank you for recognizing my grandfather's legacy today.
And Eric, as I said at the firm, he still put the garden.
We have Resolution 592, and this is a resolution to recognize Dr. Barbara Gaba, 9th President of Atlantic Cape Community College.
Move it.
May I have a motion?
Second.
Shabazz.
Shabazz, second by Gilliam.
Whereas Barbara Gaba has recently been selected and installed as the 9th President of Atlantic Cape Community College. And whereas Dr. Gaba is the first female and the first African American president of ACCC. And whereas ACCC has a satellite campus in Atlantic City that provides services to Atlantic City residents. And whereas Dr. Barbara Gaba has had a distinguished and highly regarded career in New Jersey higher education. And whereas Dr. Gaba has shown a tremendous energy and focus in meeting with religious and civic leaders in Atlantic City. And whereas Dr. Gaba promises to bring her vision, enthusiasm, and determination to lead Atlantic Cape Community College into the future. And whereas the City of Atlantic City encourages the future growth and development of ACCC. And now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the City of Atlantic City hereby recognizes, salutes, and welcomes Dr. Barbara Gaba as the 9th President of Atlantic Cape Community College and wishes her great success as she continues in her tenure. Chang?
Yes.
Delgado?
Yes.
Gilliam?
Yes.
Kurtz?
Yes.
Marsh?
Yes.
Randolph?
Yes.
Shabazz?
Yes.
Tibbet?
Yes.
And Small.
Yes.
And we do have, that's 9 in the affirmative, and we do have a presentation.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Donna Basalo, and I am the Dean of our Worthington Atlantic City campus. Dr. Gaba could not be with us this evening. She is traveling on a conference and asked me to attend and receive this honor. We are truly honored, and I can certainly share with you Dr. Gaba's commitment to this Atlantic City campus. One of her first leadership initiatives was the creation of full-time branch campus deans at our Worthington Atlantic City campus and our Cape May County campus. And Dr. Gaba promoted me in August, and I moved from our Mays Landing campus full-time here in Atlantic City, and certainly started to get acclimated with the city. And Councilman Shabazz, my thanks for all of your assistance, and Councilman Kurtz as well. And we are indeed very committed to initiatives that are going to be very strictly based here in Atlantic City for Atlantic City residents. So I look forward to working with you and our new leadership, and certainly with our businesses in Atlantic City as we help to promote higher education for our residents. Thank you very much.
Resolution 594 is a resolution of condolence to the family of Michael A. Scott.
May I have a motion?
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Randolph, second by Shabazz.
Whereas Michael A. Scott, age 66, was born in Atlantic City. He departed this life on October 29, 2017 in Pleasantville, New Jersey. And whereas Michael A. Scott attended Atlantic City Public Schools, Stockton University, and Rutgers University. And whereas he proudly served in the United States Marines during the Vietnam War and was a faithful member of Shiloh Temple Apostolic Cathedral in Atlantic City, where he served as a deacon and sang on the men's choir. Excuse me. Whereas Michael A. Scott was employed by the City of Atlantic City as Director of Public Works from 2002 to 2006. In 2008, he returned to City Hall as Director of Public Works, and in 2009 became the city's business administrator until his retirement on June 1st, 2012. And whereas Michael A. Scott was kind, compassionate, strong, and fair. During his stellar career, he earned the respect and admiration of many and was highly regarded throughout the community. Mike, as he was affectionately called, will sorely be missed. And whereas the Council of the City of Atlantic City desires to pay tribute to the life and legacy of Michael A. Scott, and hereby recognizes and commends his dedicated and devoted efforts on behalf of the citizens and taxpayers of the City of Atlantic City. And now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the City of Atlantic City hereby joins in the mourning of the passing of Michael A. Scott and expresses heartfelt condolences to his family and friends. Chang?
Yes.
Delgado?
Yes.
Gilliam?
Yes.
Kurtz?
Yes.
Marsh?
Yes.
Randolph?
Yes.
Shabazz?
Yes.
Tibbet?
Yes.
And Small.
Yes.
That's 9 in the affirmative.
Who's here?
He's here.
Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of my siblings who is not here and my stepmother. My father done a lot for this city. My father done a lot for his family. He left a large, big legacy. And for a minute I was tripping. I'm like, my father died 66 years old. That's young. And I spoke with Mr. Young weeks before that, and he said, you should be proud because your father done everything he can do. He was a great public servant. And now's his time. You should not want him to suffer. So this morning I woke up with great pride knowing that I am Michael Anthony Scott Jr. He was senior. He left a legacy. So I like to say that my father taught me strength. When it comes to leadership, there's no strength if there's no unity. So I like to say to our new mayor, the new administration, I'm happy to see that you're in this position. But I ask you to show unity with Council President because Trenton is looking. They looking. Words are being said that this city is not going to make a comeback. And one thing my father imbued in me and imbued in some of you was unity, was strength. So I thank you for standing up because he was a stand-up man. And I ask that you support me. If you see me out there doing something I have no business doing, you step to me because I'm next in line. So I thank you for all of this. I am deeply saddened because my father didn't get the chance to see me become who I'm going to become. But I know he's looking down on me in spirit. And I'd like to thank y'all for everything y'all have done while my father was the BA, while he was a public director. He goes back with Kaleem Shabazz, who said my father had a gentle heart as tissue, but he was hard on issues.
That's right.
I'd like to personally thank Marty Smalls for being there for me behind closed doors. Mr. Tibbet, Sporty, Mo, and of course my mentor Steve Young, who has me on punishment right now. But I thank you. I'm going to uphold my dad's legacy, and he will live on forever. Thank you.
Resolution 598 is a resolution of condolence to the family of James Jimmy Tyoon.
Move it.
Second. Moved by Gilliam, second by Chang.
Whereas James Jimmy Tyoon Sr. was the kind of character an author would have needed to dream up to write about Philadelphia if he didn't already exist in a city replete with colorful personalities. And whereas Mr. Tyoon spent the first 19 years of his career in the newspaper business, including a turn as a sports writer for the Daily News and for military publications while he served in Korea. And whereas Mr. Tyoon and his brother Ed, who died in 2013, also ran the Middle East restaurant in South Philadelphia, and then Old City from 1958 to 1996. Whereas Mr. Tyoon, who graduated from Temple University with a degree in journalism, was elected to the Pennsylvania House of Representatives in 1969, and then served as a member of Philadelphia City Council. And whereas James Tyoon departed this life on November 1st, 2017, a long, lively chapter in Philadelphia politics has come to a close. And now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Atlantic City hereby joins in the mourning of the passing of James Jimmy Tyoon Sr. and offers condolences to his family and friends. Chang?
Yes.
Delgado?
Yes.
Gilliam?
Yes.
Kurtz?
Yes.
Marsh?
Yes.
Randolph?
Yes.
Shabazz?
Yes.
Tibbet?
Yes.
And Small.
Yes.
That's 9 in the affirmative, and we have a presentation.
While she's looking.
I haven't.
It's a little more history. Same chairs, many different faces. We've sat with former Mayor Ushery, God rest his soul, Pasquale, when the casinos were just elected, at our dining room table, helping this city understand the impact it would receive from the money, revenue, and how they became a large city overnight. My dad was very involved in private times in this city, counseling, advising, and trying to do what he always did best, whatever needed to be done for the weak and poorest among us. These things help us. We've gotten so many of them, and I thank you for your time.
And we have new business resolution 630, and this is a resolution recognizing Raymond Bethia Jr.
May I have a motion?
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Shabazz, second by Randolph.
for receiving an NCAA Division I scholarship to Howard University. Whereas Raymond Bethia Jr. is a senior at Atlantic City High School and a prominent athlete and exceptional basketball player. Whereas last season, Ray averaged 18 points and 6.3 rebounds and was a first-team press All-Star and one of the Cape Atlantic League's and South Jersey's most versatile players. Whereas Ray recently signed a national letter of intent to attend Howard University in Washington, D.C. on an NCAA Division I scholarship. And whereas this life-changing opportunity for Ray to attend Howard University on an NCAA Division I scholarship equates to a savings of as much as $200,000 in college tuition. And whereas the Council of the City of Atlantic City recognizes and commends Raymond Bethia Jr. for his outstanding efforts, hard work, and significant accomplishments. And now therefore be it resolved, the Council of the City of Atlantic City congratulates Raymond Bethia Jr. for receiving an NCAA Division I scholarship and extends best wishes for continued success. Chang?
Yes.
Delgado?
Yes.
Gilliam?
No, he gotta add a few more points to that assist category, but yes.
Kurtz?
Yes.
Marsh?
Yes.
Randolph?
Yes.
Shabazz?
Yes.
Tibbet?
Yes.
And Small.
Want to play one-on-one for this vote? Alright.
You don't want to embarrass
So
the
the
old
vote's
man, do you?
postponed, we'll come back next week after. Yes.
That's 9 in the affirmative, and we have a presentation.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you to invite us here. And I just came a long way, you know, from growing up. I wasn't always the fortunate kid or the best kid around. You know, I just stayed, you know, listening to my family, stayed out of trouble, and just tried to, you know, get good grades. Just be a good student and student athlete. And I just appreciate this award from everyone here. Thank you.
I want to thank y'all for recognizing my nephew, Raymond Bethea, but really, this is something that, even though it's my nephew, I think it's something that we need to recognize with our youth. Oftentimes, we celebrate just activities in sports or someone does something, but I know the struggle that it took him to get there. He wasn't always the great athlete that we see today. Very clumsy, you know. He wasn't always the best student, but it's not recognized that he's received straight A's, and it's not only just for sports, but academics as well. So I really, you know, we have many students that they just pass by because they're good athletes. But he's not just a good athlete, he's an excellent student too. And his father doesn't usually get the credit for that hard work, because we know in the city, you don't always get praised, sometimes you get criticized.
Amen.
So when you see him this season as he was last season, every season before that, screaming and hollering, he's also screaming and hollering in the house for those books and those A's. So I thank you all for giving my nephew recognition, and also I want to thank my brother for being a father, a mentor for many youth, many of those athletes at Atlantic City High School who he has out early in the morning, running and working hard, that just get passed by sometimes. So thank you. I thank him, I thank my nephew, I thank his mother, and I thank the city of Atlantic City for showing our support, and hopefully you attend all the games when we get the scoring time.
One thing, I do prefer that you continue to sit at the top of the bleachers.
Yeah,
and Terry, I do
please.
prefer to sit beside you.
Yeah, sit right, please.
Hey, Ray. Little Ray. Stay there for a minute. So many times in Atlantic City and throughout the country, we hear about fatherless African-American boys. This is a prime example, and I know you know, Ray, because your father has been very hard on you, but it's for a reason.
That's right.
Listen, man, we love you for what you do.
That's right.
He loves you even more, because it's just not him. There's been a myriad of support apparatuses that made sure this fellow got there, but it starts at home.
Right. That's right.
Thank you for being hard on his ass. So many people think that being hard means that you're non-compassionate. It means that you see something greater in people when you're hard on them. Keep doing what you're doing, because I remember when folks had counted you out. He never did. Saturday mornings, rides up and down the highway. And it gives me great pride. These aren't tears of sadness. This is a great moment for you. It's a great moment for this community, because again, student athletes have been passed, but that concept has been passed by in Atlantic City. And you are the start of what we need to have as an example. Because again, you worked hard and you committed yourself to the cause, and now look at what you have. God bless you. God bless your family. Love you, man.
Council President, while we're in this situation, I'd just like to make light of a point that I think we need to resonate with. Too often, on a national standpoint, we see children, children that don't look like you or I, get these opportunities to go to school, to go to college. They don't get the focus on TV about the grand scope of their accomplishment. And we've fought on year upon year to prove everyone else outside that our children are deserving. I'm usually the emotional one, so I applaud my brother on the other side. But I'm aware of some of the hardships. Ray Ray and I go way back, way back. So his seed is our seed, because we're all family. So I'm extremely proud of you. You have broken that threshold. Now when they look in Atlantic City, they just don't look for the crime that they like to publish, the hardships, the adversity that you have, but now they're able to publish and show achievement, not only in sports, but in schools, in your education. So as you go out there and proudly become that Bison, I challenge you, not only to be the best person that you can be, but be that superstar you were born to be, in that classroom and outside. There's others that we know who've gotten to a certain level, and unfortunately life got in the way. Don't let nothing stop you. Because your father and your mom worked hard to try to open up them doors for you. Now it's time for you to stomp through the other doors that are in front of you now. So I applaud
you. Before you sit down, young Greg, probably so make it a lighter moment. First of all, I'm very proud of you, academically first. But probably sitting up here, and I'm gonna make light of this, I'm probably the only one, maybe Speedy, that's seen every one of your high school games. And I'll be sitting on the bench cheering for you this year, okay? I love you, and God bless you.
And I just want to say briefly, I was, proud to be associated, consider myself a great friend of the family, except for his brother. That's another story. But, Ray, Big Ray has been one of my most staunch supporters in life. Forget politics, forget anything else, real life situations. He's been there for me. And I was at the incubator stage of this little thing when Ray was about 3 or 4 years old. It was called Team Ray D1. And his goal, he always said that regardless of whatever, my son is going to play Division I basketball. And of course, with that comes what schools he's going to, et cetera, et cetera. So I had the opportunity when I ran a sports program for Atlantic City to have Ray in my program. And his first breakout moment in Atlantic City was a game at Richmond Avenue School that I still have on an old camcorder. Ray scored 7 points. If you seen Big Ray that day, you would have thought Ray hit the game-winning shot, Game 7 in the finals. But that's the type of passion he has, taking his kid, amongst others, throughout the whole tri-state area and other parts of the country. During the journey, they got to see other parts of the country, which is very, very, very important, because there's an outside element to just Atlantic City basketball. It's the phenomenon called AAU. And he traveled the circuit, put many, many, many miles on the vehicle, and basically was hard on all of his kids, his daughter too. And I'm just proud to say that, I was there every step of the way. The journey's not complete. Just remember, one day, you're not going to be as good as you are now. Go get the education, because it's going to open up limitless opportunities for you, and come back to the area and, do the right thing, give back to the community that's given much to you. So I thank you. I'm happy, and go Vikings.
Mr. President, if I may, I think we might have hit upon a new item to add to our agenda. As my colleagues have said, this is an outstanding young man, and I wish him all the success in life that he can have. And I think, as the imam said, the important thing, Atlantic City's been known for athletes. Sam Sawyer, we've had hundreds and scores of athletes who've been outstanding in athletic endeavors. But what makes this young man stand out, what I think we need to underscore, is that he has high academic achievement. And although I'm a basketball fan, a football fan, even though the Eagles are coming up, but I think that we have to recognize our youth. So maybe we can do that at a council meeting, other outstanding youth that we can recognize, so they know that they don't have to do things out of order to get our attention. And if they're athletes, they're good, but we need to recognize people who are outstanding academics and people who are both. I think we need to make that a regular part of our meeting.
Council President, one thing, Ray, I gotta congratulate you, fabulous father. I said, tonight you see a lot of emotion. When you look up here, you see a lot of guys up here that grew up without their fathers for one reason or another. And one thing you see in Atlantic City is although we disagree on some things and we argue and fight sometimes, every man up here, and guys like you, Ray, in the community, the examples we're setting with how we are with our children. We don't miss their events. They're the most important thing in the world to us. And it takes away that stigma of people not having fathers. Growing up without a father myself, I know I can't miss my kids' games. It's the greatest feeling in the world. And I want to congratulate all of you, because I see all of you, the jobs that you do with your children, and this is a perfect example of what happens, the fruits of our labor, the things that we give up as parents, and then to get to see this, it's got to be the most proud day of your life. And I'm sure many more are coming. But gentlemen, congratulate you all on the great job you do with your children. I see it all the time, and just recognize that great fathers in this city. And
You got the mic, you want to speak?
I mean, you can't be shy never, not in the game. So I need to hear something from you.
I just want to say thank you to everybody. Thanks for the award. Thanks, Community Bass, for acknowledging us. And my whole thing is I do what I do. I didn't have a father. I ain't gonna say I didn't have a father. I wasn't fortunate to have my father in my life. You know what I mean? So my whole motivation was to give my son something that I didn't have.
Right.
So that's what it is. So I'm fortunate that my son got the opportunity to go to Howard, and also, a short story, when we went to his first visit to Howard, and my daughter who went to Howard took us on the visit. She was the host for my son at Howard to go to Howard. And one of her girlfriends said to me, she said, Mr. Bethia, if both of your kids go to Howard, you're black royalty. I said, oh, I didn't know that. so I guess it's real special, but I guess it's God, it was all God. Because I just work hard. I didn't go to college. I wasn't fortunate enough to go to college, but I wanted both of my children to do. And both of them went, and both of them going to Howard University. Drop the mic.
Give everybody a chance to collect themselves.
Okay. We're now at public comment on good and welfare. First up is Linda Brennan.
That's ordinance. That's resolution. That's ordinance.
No, that's ordinance.
That's a second reading.
Can we amend the agenda then?
Yeah. Bring that up. I make a motion to suspend the rules to bring.
Moved by Gilliam, second by Kurtz. to bring on ordinance number
35.
35.
Just went out the hallway.
We have to vote on that?
Vote on the amendment
Wait,
to move the ordinance.
family coming back in?
She's right
She's
there.
right here.
Oh, there it
Ms.
is.
Harper is right there.
Oh, there she is.
Chang,
Yes.
Delgado,
Yes.
Gilliam,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Randolph.
Yes.
Shabazz.
Yes.
Tibbet,
Yes.
and Small.
Yes.
That's on the amendment to move it up the agenda. Now, this is ordinance 35, an ordinance to provide for additional name and designation on Vermont Avenue and the boardwalk as Louis Champ Hoffman Way in recognition of Louis Champ Hoffman.
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Shabazz, second by Randolph. Any comments from the public? Public portion is closed. Any comments?
Then make it all council.
It is. It's
It
on.
is. It's all council.
Call the vote.
Chang,
Yes.
Delgado,
Yes.
Gilliam,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Randolph.
Yes.
Shabazz.
Yes.
Tibbet,
Yes.
and Small.
Yes.
That's 9 in the affirmative.
Ms. Hoffman, it passed. Ms. Hoffman? Like to say a few words?
On behalf of my family, we'd like to thank council for passing this. Champ loved the city, and
Yes, he did.
he was glad to be a part of everything going on here.
Absolutely.
Yes, he was.
So once again, thank you, council.
Okay.
I want to thank every single one of you for doing this. You don't know how happy I am and how happy he is because he loved Atlantic
Yes, he
City.
did.
This was his second home.
Right.
Thank you. My son had to go to the men's room. Thank you all again.
Okay.
Okay. May we continue with public comment? Linda Brennan?
Next.
Joseph Hicks?
Mr. Hicks?
Elder Hicks.
And good evening to all. And I wish all Atlantic County the best of wishes to the newly elected. And congratulations to those that didn't win, but they're still going to be a part of the program. So God bless you and all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks.
Johnny X?
Not here.
Next.
Amin Mohammed?
Next. He's gone.
There
you go.
Wait, right there.
You got something else to say?
Yeah, I was. I'm sorry.
Your time started a minute ago.
Okay, I'm sorry. Just one
35
question.
seconds.
The new business 414F was the ordinance to lease city-owned property known as 1010 Drexel Avenue to the Boys and Girls Club of Atlantic City. I'm very concerned about this ordinance because was there a due process for other entities, nonprofit entities that may have been interested? That is Mayor Ustry Daycare Center, that is now Gateway had that they're no longer using. There were other entities that were interested in that facility, and I wonder what was the process, or what will be the process to select who would be given opportunity to attain this property. What was the process, and if there was no process, could we hold this to later until we get a process and give fair opportunity to everyone to have access or present proposals for that particular facility? I don't know if it's Abel a question, was there a process?
I can speak to that. There's been several community organizations that have been interested in the building, some public, some private. And this process has been going on, for a while. It was dominated by youth organizations. There were some churches that were interested. I heard there were some masjids that are interested. But from what I understood, and the solicitor can speak more to that, we weren't allowed to enter into an agreement with a religious institution. Being as though that the Boys and Girls Club is, quote, the contiguous landowner for nearby, in layman's terms. And the fact that they had outgrown that facility, we saw that as the best natural fit. And for them to build a state-of-the-art teen center with focus on visual arts and other entrepreneurial training and, for the children, we thought that was the best fit, and that's why you see the item on the agenda.
I just have a question. When you say we, who does that entail? We as in who? Because we all know that when it comes to making a decision on projects, it can't be something that does not come before council in terms of the process. We've heard for the past 3-4 years the process. Now we get to this point where, again, this is a questionable process, because the fact of the matter is, let's say that that building could accommodate a myriad of groups, right? It does not have to basically be dominated by one particular group, because there's a multitude of organizations that at some point in Atlantic City is going to have to realize that they have to work together. There is no silos, and we've had the opportunity to talk to the Boys and Girls Club. We've had the opportunity to talk to Masjid and other people, and the consensus was that they all should be talking together and figuring out how they can coexist in that structure together. And the other thing, I don't know if it's what legal advice that was given in terms of not being able to go into an agreement with a religious or faith-based organization. That's what we are able to do the most, because that's a part of the community that we need to be working with in terms of doing the social things that maybe a Boys and Girls Club can't do or PAL can't do. So I'm not so sure that I'm comfortable with the process, and the we, I'm not sure the who and what the we is. But I do know that it's important for us to begin to have all these entities. And again, I'm being totally transparent, because as Boys and Girls Club sat and they gave a very good presentation, right? And I do believe that they should have access, but they shouldn't be the sole entity, because we are a community that has the ability to bring a variety of things into play. So I just want to know how the selection process was for this project.
Well, where did you form your opinion that Boys and Girls Club shouldn't be the sole?
Yeah.
And Boys and Girls Club, excuse me, Boys and Girls Club has made a commitment to work with the new charter school, which is going through the process of being approved.
No, which is true, because again, we.
And excuse me, before we go, can people in the back keep their comments to themselves, please?
Now,
Excuse me, this is a professional setting. Whether you agree with what someone is saying, show respect for the person who's speaking. Everybody isn't always going to agree or disagree with what whomever's saying, but just show the respect. There's no need to stand up and make comments and different things like that while someone is speaking. Thank you very much.
And the beauty of your point, right, we included them as well, because when we talk about inclusive, we're not just talking about specifics. We had the ability to talk with the Boys and Girls Club, and we mentioned every entity that was involved that was interested. So we didn't just pick any side. We said that we wanted those people to sit down and to talk among each other to figure out how they can actually cohabitate with each other in terms of making it a success. So we never actually, again, I sat down, and if you think I haven't really expressed my opinion, I have expressed my opinion. I've talked to the principals of the Boys and Girls Club and told them that I support them in what they're doing, because the fact of the matter is, they do a great job. and we would never actually stop or try to impede them from growing and expanding. But the key was to always be able to now have these institutions not basically barking at each other, figuring out ways to cohabitate and to collaborate, because that's what Atlantic City is in need of. We have too much of the individualism and thinking that one institution is better than the next. I think everybody's greater together as they move forward. So I did express my concerns to them as well as the other entities, because again, I've told them I was not going to take a position unless they all spoke together and got to the table to figure out something where they can all coexist.
Yeah, well, you just confirmed that this process has been out there for a while, and just with any project or any organization, it's best use, best fit, and myself, I've been in the opinion, and I'm sure others share, that, for example, there was talk, okay, well, give the building to PAL. That doesn't make any sense. PAL has a much larger facility already with a myriad of activities going on daily on all 3 floors. And the Boys and Girls Club is busting at the seams, and it's right there. If this was a property, you know, more than likely it would go to the Boys and Girls Club. So, and we figured that it was the best use.
Did the public get an opportunity to chime in on that?
But listen, you keep saying the public don't have an opportunity to chime in on a lot of things. So let's not pick and choose when we say when the public is involved. Let's be consistent.
Council President.
Listen, listen, I don't have a problem with that, but don't pick and choose when you want to say that the public is involved. And we should involve the public. Just if we're going to do that, let's be consistent across the board.
Council President, this is not something that I'm arguing with you about. This is something that I'm simply saying that this is a great opportunity to have organizations form a coalition, because faith-based do something. Boys and Girls have their expertise in what they do. The charter school has the expertise in what they do. I think that there is an opportunity to be able to have all parties utilize a portion of that business and a part of the Boys and Girls Club, because again, the Boys and Girls Club is here to expand and to do a lot more, just as the faith-based community, just as the Frederick Douglass Charter School. So I just think it's in the best interest of us to start understanding the importance of working as a unit when we make decisions, because there's so much more that we can get out of multiple people doing things and different perspectives that they have expertise in.
Mr. President?
Yeah, but one other thing, when you look at the situation, if you understand programming and if you understand the dynamics of, you know, a building, that's saying, okay, well, we're going to have 4 different programs, you know, in the building at once. They're going to retrofit that into a state-of-the-art teen center. It's going to be all kind of equipment and upgrades that come with that. And that is to house teens during the after-school hours. I mean,
but you're missing a greater point.
I'm not missing a greater point, but what I'm saying is this. It's on the agenda now. Everybody vote their conscience. It's going to go to the Boys and Girls Club. The Boys and Girls Club want to talk to different organizations. You know, we'll take it from there. That'll be their prerogative. But it's on the agenda for, you know, the best use possible.
Mr. President, if I could make a suggestion, could we entertain written proposals from organizations that want to participate, as Councilman Gilliam has said?
Councilman Shabazz, this has been going on for a while. This is no secret to anyone.
Mr. President, let me finish. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it's a secret. I'm talking about a process. How come we can't, that's improper English, but can't we receive from people, from organizations?
Yes.
They're contiguous landowners, you know that,
right? Yeah, we already been talking to various groups.
Everybody's been talking. I'm saying, can't we, if I can finish, can't we receive from organizations that want to participate something in writing, how they want to participate, vet it through your committee, bring it back in December and vote. That's my suggestion.
We're not gonna entertain that.
This is where we lose sight of what's more important for the greater community. There's no one saying that they don't want the Boys and Girls Club to have the building. There's no one saying that they're not going to be, or they wouldn't be, a better conduit. What I'm saying is, there has to be an opportunity for people to begin to work together so they can actually get the maximum, right? So if you have, whether you know it or not, you can't even get a grant from the federal government unless you show where you're collaborating with other entities. You know that, the Boys and Girls Club know that very well. So it's not something that we as Atlantic Cityans are saying we're trying to do something new. It's actually the protocol to collaborate with other entities within the area in which Boys and Girls Club exists. Because, again, I'm a firm believer that for the kid that comes in to the Boys and Girls Club and might be a part of gangs, right? There's an element that the faith-based community who has relationships with those communities that can actually speak to that. There's an entity called the Frederick Douglass School, Charter School. The Boys and Girls Club is not in the business of education, so they've opened up their arms and said, yes, we would partner with Frederick Douglass. That's collaboration. So when we're talking about whether Boys and Girls Club gets it or not, they're looking to collaborate. They never said that they weren't open to basically working with other entities. And all we're saying is open up that line of communication so no one's actually barking at each other, because we all want things to be moving forward harmoniously. And this is a great way to start doing things from a harmonious standpoint when faith-based, social service, education get together and morph into something, and I don't know what that is. And I mean, I don't even know if it can exist, but at least we should be trying to figure out if it can exist before we say that this goes to this and no one else someone else should have said this, but it's not that type of party. The party is let everyone be at the table together, figure out if you can do something together, and if you can't, then you move forward in doing what you do. But not to have that opportunity exist, I think is an unfair, process for everybody, because we want our children to have the best. And it's just that simple, and I think that getting the best, you have to collaborate and cooperate among a myriad of things to make sure that happens, that's all.
All right, and we're going to put an end to this portion of the discussion. As I stated, and you basically confirmed what I said, there's no harm, no foul, moving forward, turn the land over to the Boys and Girls Club, and they can enter into whatever agreements with whatever other youth groups that they want. So that's it. Move the agenda.
Joyce Molyneux.
Next. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me see.
Good evening, Council President, Council members. My question is it the city's land? Whose land is it?
It's the city's land.
Okay, so you just automatically saying turn it over to the Boys and Girls Club?
Do you care about the youth?
What kind of question is that? I'm asking you one question, you're asking me another question.
I just asked a question.
I care about all of you.
Okay.
Okay. But there are always underprivileged youth that can't even get into the Boys and Girls Club. And that I've been saying this for a long time. The Boys and Girls Club does not allow all the youth, can I get your attention please? The Boys and Girls Club is a good Boys and Girls Club, but we have underprivileged youth all over this city. And that's been going on for a long time. Everybody stands out and give to the Boys and Girls Club because it's a big name. But what about the little children that are underprivileged and can't get into the Boys and Girls Club? You saying the PAL is there and it's overflowed? Did you say that? What was your statement on that, Councilman?
I can't remember.
I would ask the Secretary to play it back.
Making reference to the Boys and Girls Club, saying
Yes.
that they were
Yes.
in excess.
So, there are more children, the children that can't get into the PAL's Club, PAL building. So we still have children around this city
All children around this city need attention, all children. Everybody should get the opportunity to get a piece of the city's land. This is the city's land now. I didn't know it was the city's land when I first heard the conversation, so I just inquired for you. So if the city's land, give everybody an opportunity. Do not leave our children behind. And for you to ask me a question like that means you didn't have nothing else to say. Thank you.
Point well taken.
Michael Scott Jr.,
He already spoke.
Brenda Smith,
Good evening, Council President and all council members. I'm here to congratulate the newly elected, sorry about my English, newly elected mayor and newly elected council. Sorry. And I just want to say that I'm here also for all the young children and youth of Atlantic City and here for all the Atlantic City residents. Just praying, my prayers is that the newly elected mayor and all the council members just have good intents for all of the residents, especially our youth of Atlantic City, and coming together and just making sure that our young children and youth have a better future here in Atlantic City and a brighter future as far as education and just things for them to do. And I just want to say to everyone on the council board, have a great and healthy and happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thank you.
You too.
Zakir Hossein,
We're gonna say him at the end. We're gonna say him at the end.
Hi, my name is Zakir Hussain. I think I came last council meeting about the parking issue between Massachusetts and Oriental and Pacific Avenue, between Massachusetts and Pacific. I think the 18 family live down there. They don't have a parking. We are suffering many years. Still, we don't have a solve. Last council meeting I came, I addressed Spoonie Runner, and then also Mayor introduced to Dell for the licensing director. A couple of days ago, I went to his office, and he told me to spoke to council board, Spoonie Runner, and then he on the answer. I just want to know anything approved and what is going to be approved for the parking. Thank you.
Can I answer that right quick, please? We will talk to you at the end of the meeting. The director and I have devised a plan, and I talked to you yesterday on the phone. I just guess you wanted to get up and say something, but we will definitely have a conversation with you before this meeting's over with, okay?
All right, thank you.
Stephen Young,
Jimmy.
First, I want to say congratulations to Mayor-elect Frank Gidgham. Congratulations to Councilman Lars Delgado. Congratulations to Councilman George Pivot. Special congratulations to Jeff Farnboy III.
Second.
And we look forward, on behalf of the NAA, the National Action Network, as well as the Peacekeepers, we look forward to working with you. And we do hope that this administration coming in will keep it transparent as much as possible. We will be on this side to hold everything accountable. So we would like to be part of that transparency, if so. And the second thing I would like to talk about is that swing that's on Browns Park that's been down for over I believe 90 days, if we can't fix one swing from $1 million park, then we have some issues in this town. It don't take that long to get no park. And someone could possibly rebuild it over. And do we have a warranty on the things that we actually purchase? And if it takes 90 days to get a park for one swing, we have someone did the wrong bidding to give somebody a contract. Number 3, I just want to say thank you to Jason Hall and with the exclusive, a little update on the drill team that was basically put out on the street because of political reasons, that the administration is trying to find them and insisting that them with getting a new home or someplace to temporary to go to. And I would like to see if Mr. Holt can actually give an update on that, where we are with that at this point, if I can.
The exclusive drill team has entered into an agreement with the municipality to use Soldiers Home, and for 3 nights a week. They've also been referred through the CRDA to another location to see if that location will work. I've had a discussion with Ms. Dunstan, as you're probably aware, earlier today, prior to this meeting, so I think things are moving ahead.
And we will continue to hold the administration accountable while they're there, as well as, with the rest of the council. We just want to work together, and transparency is the key. And when it came to a group of young people being put out on the street, I do believe they should have opportunity to, when it comes to leasing land or purchasing land that was owned by the city of Atlantic City. So in the future, to have new business ordinance on the agenda without it being on the website, I think that's not quite transparent, and we need to work on those types of things. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, Mr. Kaufman has a response on the playground. I know Mr. Young brought that up before. Mr. Young, I want you to hear what Mr. Kaufman has to say about the playground.
Sure. So our chief landscape architect has been in touch with the supplier, and they're going to be out next week to fix this one.
What day next week?
I'm not entirely sure yet.
Okay.
I can certainly follow up.
Well, we will be watching.
Sure.
Thank you.
Next. Okay.
Okay, that brings us to ordinances on second and final reading. Ordinance 31 is an ordinance to amend ordinance 47 of 2015 regarding the naming of Palmentary Purple Heart Highway.
Make a motion.
Move it.
Moved by Delgado, second by Shabazz. Anyone from the public would like to speak? Seeing none. Public portion is closed. This is second, yes, this is taking second reading. Any questions? Call the vote.
Chang?
Yes.
Delgado?
Yes.
Gilliam?
Yes.
Kurtz?
Yes.
Marsh?
Yes.
Randolph?
Yes.
Shabazz?
Yes.
Tibbet?
Yes.
And Small.
Yes.
That's 9 in the affirmative. Ordinance number 32 is an ordinance to remove barriers to stable housing and to promote successful reintegration of formerly incarcerated criminally convicted persons.
Move it.
May I have a motion?
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Gilliam, second by Shabazz. Any questions from the public?
Good afternoon again, we're on 32, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
32.
Yes. I want to say that this is a good ordinance, Mary, that this is a good ordinance that you put here. This has been something that we should always be doing to try to help the incarcerated. And I read this whole resolution last month, and I didn't get up here to say anything about it, but I'm very pleased that you are working on something like this. This means you are on a good track. Thank you.
Chang?
Yes.
Delgado?
Yes.
Gilliam?
Yes.
Kurtz?
No.
Marsh?
Yes.
Randolph?
Yes.
Shabazz?
Yes.
Tibbet?
Yes.
And Small.
Yes.
8 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative. We have ordinance 33, and this is an ordinance to amend City Code Chapter 79, Section 7, regarding increasing the license fees for distribution licenses.
May I have a motion?
Move it.
Moved by Shabazz, second by Marsh. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, public portion is closed. Comments? Seeing none, call the vote.
Chang?
Are we in a race tonight? You got somewhere to go?
I'm not just
Very
looking
fast.
I think
We
that's
only
what
work one night a week, a month, so let's take our time. Jesse, weren't you pulling these? You told me you were pulling these?
No,
that's
this
one.
No,
No,
the ordinance that I'm pulling, it's the one that was under ordinances for first reading.
Okay,
14E, like Edward.
Okay, just
You
want to
stopped
make
the
sure.
traffic off of
But I
that.
want to ask him.
Call the vote.
Chang?
No.
Delgado?
No.
Gilliam?
No.
Kurtz?
Yes.
Marsh?
Yes.
Randolph?
Yes.
Shabazz?
Yes.
Tibbet?
No.
And Small.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 4 in the negative. Ordinance 34 amends Chapter 57, which regulates salaries, titles, and compensation, a division of the tax collector.
May I have a motion?
Move it.
Moved by Marsh, second by Shabazz. Any comments from the public?
I just want to know, I'm sorry.
Ms. Steele, you took a long way.
That's all right. He said take your time, you only come here once a month. No, I just wanted to know, what are the changes?
We're adding a deputy tax collector vis-à-vis this ordinance, salary.
Oh, okay, and, is there a connection, can I ask a question about 14A? Is there a connection between the two?
14A.
Yeah, seems like.
They're just renaming the division because we're trying to centralize collections in the tax collector's office.
And who's gonna be in charge?
At this point, the deputy tax collector will be in charge.
Oh, okay. And are we talking about retraining as well?
Yes.
Oh, okay, all right. Thank you.
The deputy.
Anyone else from the public? Discussion?
Yes, what does this mean? Like, it's been meeting after meeting where we make these moves with money, and then we still haven't made certain people whole with their retirement that we're holding up. We still haven't basically made certain people whole in positions that they're basically doing dual services where they're working in 2 different departments. Yet and still, we find ourselves continuously to move backwards with every decision we make. And this is kind of embarrassing that we stand or sit here every meeting where we move money and we really don't have any real significant reason why we do it. And it's also kind of odd where we're in lame duck season where these things shouldn't even be moving, but it appears that they're moving to cause hardships, not just on me as a new elected mayor, but on taxpayers. And I have a fundamental issue with why we move on money issues, knowing that we're still not out of the financial hole that we're trying to climb out, and we still continues to show the world that we can't govern from administrative side where we're constantly being pushed with things that aren't even justifiable. Talking about a deputy to do what?
Councilman, like the ordinance was actually started at the last meeting and passed first reading. As a part of the audit procedure, there was a recommendation that there be a deputy tax collector put in place.
And there's been recommendations that we have people who've been here, like directors that are still at a salary, and other directors are pretty much making more than them. We still here, sitting here where we have newly hired employees coming at higher salaries than other people that have been here. And you tell me that your recommendation, after you've heard recommendations from us on what we want our people to be getting. You gave us a recommendation to privatize. That wasn't good. Now you give me a recommendation to hire something that isn't good for whatever reason that I'm not sure of. But again, it's disrespectful to the process that you guys try to move things and lame duck when they don't supposed to move. And you think people are asleep and not open-minded to what you're trying to do. And I find it very disrespectful, but I also find it very pleasing that we won't have to deal with this type of business moving forward in 2018.
I just want to speak on something, and is once again speaking to consistency. Every year, especially every 2 years in Atlantic City, there's lame duck, and the show and business must go on. And I do recall the last time that it was, quote, a lame duck council. 3 council members, Shane, Kurtz, and Shabazz, wrote a letter to you as council president then, asking for certain things not to be moved on. And that request wasn't granted because, as you said, the show and business must go on. So when we speak, I just think that we need to be consistent in our thinking. And also, if I do recall that, if I'm not mistaken, that this was voted on last meeting as unanimous. So where is the
Mr. Smalls, Mr. Smalls, that's the beauty of what we call life. Things are always changing. Nothing is ever in concrete because you get the opportunity, you go back and you review things. And because this is something that you may have a problem with, but I don't have a problem with you expressing your concerns. But I am kind of sick and tired of us basically not showing a much better view to the public where we don't have to vet what we disagree on. It's not necessary for me to speak and say something and you come behind me to try to drag me or make it seem like I'm not efficient or sufficient. But all due respect, I do want to say to you that we do have the ability as human beings to change, and that's the purpose of being human.
I'm agreeing to disagree. I'm not being disagreeable. I'm just speaking on consistency. That's all I said.
Okay, so thank you, sir.
And if it's, my opinion to say that, something should be more consistent, just like you're giving your opinion. I'm not here for that. I'm here to just say, okay, well, let's call a spade a spade.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Chang?
No.
Delgado? No. Gilliam?
No.
Kurtz?
Yes.
Marsh?
Yes.
Randolph?
Yes.
Shabazz?
Yes.
Tibbet?
No.
And Small.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 4 in the negative. Ordinance 36 authorizes the acquisition of property located at 1516 Belfield Avenue.
Move it. Second.
Moved by Randolph, second by Marsh. Anyone from the public like to comment? Seeing none, public portion is closed. Any discussion?
I want to thank Rita for the partnership on helping us deal with some of the abandoned and derelict buildings, and we encourage them to continue the partnership with us.
Can you call the vote, George?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, call the vote.
Chang?
Yes.
Delgado?
Yes.
Gilliam?
Yes.
Kurtz?
Yes.
Marsh?
Yes.
Randolph?
Yes.
Shabazz?
Yes.
Tibbet?
Yes.
And Small.
Yes.
That's 9 in the affirmative. Which brings us to ordinances on first reading.
May I have a motion to group ordinances on first reading, regular resolutions, and executive session?
Move.
Moved by Marsh, second by Shabazz. We want to start with Mary Lake Gilliam.
Thank you very much, sir.
Can you take Marty upstairs with you so we can, you two just.
14B, no. 14C, no. 14F, no. Matter of fact, are we going through the process of being able to pull things?
Pull,
14,
no, whatever.
Pull 14F. No on, under planning, 625.
That was it, I'm sorry, Counselor, you said that was a no vote?
Pull 625 as well.
For discussion?
Yes. No on, under administration, on 464. And that's it.
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna be, no on 14E, no on 14F. Could you please pull 626, 604? Could you please pull off?
26 is,
It's under planning and development. I'm sorry, I should have said that.
okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, and under revenue and finance, 604. And that's it for me, thank you.
Chan,
Can you go back to me, please?
Kurtz,
I'd like to pull for discussion ordinance 14C like Charlie. I think I formally will table ordinance 14E like Edward now.
Okay.
I think I have to do it now, just in case, for the record. I'd like to co-sponsor the new business item 14F like Frank. I'd like to pull for discussion number 614 under planning and development.
You said 614, Jesse?
Yeah, 614, 614. And then also under admin and government affairs for discussion 464. And that is all.
Marsh,
I just want y'all support on the 599.
Randolph,
I'm good.
Shabazz,
Still waiting.
Shabazz,
I'm okay.
Delgado,
A no on 14B. If 14E will be tabled, then there's no need to vote on that. A no on 14F. Saw something else. Hold for discussion 604, revenue and finance.
That's already been pulled.
It's been pulled?
Yes.
Okay. Under Public Works, 615. Pull for discussion.
Chan,
Okay. No vote on 14B, no vote on 14F, and that's about it.
I had something else to pull for discussion, Mr. President, number 620, under Revenue and Finance, 620. And I'd also like to co-sponsor Councilman Marsh's measure, number 599.
And, Council President, as explained to me, the language is kind of, under administration, 464, Madam Clerk, I would like to actually have a yes to that, opposed to my no.
Okay,
It wasn't clear.
okay.
What was that, 464? Yeah. Under which one?
Administration and Governmental Affairs.
Okay.
and I'm good.
President, can we pull 14F?
No, we don't, people just.
It was pulled for
express their vote.
discussion.
Huh?
It's pulled for
I
discussion.
thought I
Yes,
heard
it
pull
was.
discussion. You pull?
But
Yes.
some people voted no.
I didn't.
I thought it was
I didn't say you, I said some people
I
voted no.
asked,
It's
I
pulled
asked to
for
pull that for
discussion.
discussion. Thank you.
That's fine, okay.
Call it, you good?
Okay, give me a second. We will be voting on first reading ordinance 14A, and this is amending City Code Chapter 4, Tax Collector Division to Tax and Revenue Division. 14B, ordinance amending Chapter 57, job titles. 14D, vacation of any and all public rights in the airspace over portions of Morris Avenue. 14G, an ordinance to provide for initial name and designation of Presbyterian Avenue as Demond Oski Cotman Way. And 14H is an ordinance, which is new business ordinance, redevelopment plan for the boardwalk between Montpelier and Morris Avenue. Resolutions 607, 612, 623, 627, 600, 602, 603, 605, 611, 616, 617, 618, 619, 621, 622, 588, 601, 606, 613, 599, new business resolution 629, which is a resolution in support of renewable energy. 631, opposing CRETA efforts to obtain property at 300 North Tennessee. 632, an approval for live streaming council meetings. And 633, to prepare a redevelopment plan for the area between Montpelier and Morris Avenue.
Madam Clerk, I'd just add for 631, that has Councilman Kurtz as a sponsor. I'd like to be a co-sponsor. I'd really push that forward, if he's all right.
And the exceptions noted, no votes for ordinance 14B and C for Councilman Gilliam. No vote 14F, Councilman Tibbet. No vote Chang. 14B, 14F. Councilman Delgado, 14B, 14F. Co-sponsors, Councilman Kurtz, 14F, Resolution 599. Councilman Shabazz, co-sponsor, 631. Okay.
Madam Clerk, can you add the 604 as a no vote for me as well?
No vote, Councilman Delgado, Resolution 604.
And then I need to register a no vote on 629. New business.
New business, no vote, Councilman Kurtz, Resolution 629. Everybody?
Forgive me, not 604, 603.
No vote, Councilman Delgado, Resolution 603. Okay? Chang?
Yes.
Delgado?
Yes.
Gilliam?
Yes.
Kurtz?
Yes.
Marsh?
Yes.
Randall?
Yes.
Shabazz?
Yes.
Tibbet?
Yes.
And Small?
Yes.
That's 9 in the affirmative with the exceptions noted. So the first item to be voted on, or which was pulled, is ordinance 14F. And this is pulled by Councilman Gilliam, in ordinance to lease city-owned property known as 1010 Drexel Avenue to the Boys and Girls Club.
May I have a motion?
Move it.
Second by Gilliam, second by March. Discussion?
Yes, I would respectfully ask that we table this ordinance in addition to adding what my colleague, Mr. Shabazz, stated in terms of allowing us to receive proposals or usages from other entities so they can access, so we can at least get a view of if it's a possibility that they can coexist together.
And I'm going to respectfully, and you have to understand that it can only be one leaseholder. And once the leaseholder is approved, it's up to that organization to be inclusive.
But we can encourage a more holistic approach to it, including the diagram of how the statement is going to be, including all the organizations that can do that. If we don't do that, then we won't do the community due diligence. And I say this with regards to the community itself, not to suggest that the Boys and Girls Club don't do a fabulous job of what they do. I applaud their attempts trying to expand in some of the areas they want to, but one of the areas that we seem to defeat ourselves is in the fact that we are not encouraging the holistic approach for all our youth, including faith. In the community that we're targeting or discussed, it's a large community of individuals who are Muslim. And to give them an equal opportunity to have reached a house of faith within walking distance like we do in other communities, it's not as, we're not serving the public, I think, in my personal opinion, the way we could be if we have the comfort to suggest that whoever it is that's going to be the leaseholder of this understands and engages in that opportunity so Muslims can come in and feel comfortable in an atmosphere that is available for all because we just want to make sure it's a holistic approach. I truly feel that there should be some emphasis on the wraparound approach of dealing with our youth because we're encouraging individuals to develop physically. We're encouraging a lot of individuals to develop incrementally in their education base, but we're not delving ourselves into certain areas that may not be our expertise. And I think those that are experts into it in the faith base could work and help that. Because I think if we had more of that, we might be more successful in saving more lives. And I think that's one of the underlying statements that's necessary for the Boys and Girls Club to continuously do, to save lives to providing services. But I also think that the masjid and imam and all the pastors in the city also intend to do so too. So I think for us to have a better holistic approach to dealing with our children and our youth in that community, I think it best serves to have it all available, all in the prepackaged. So when it is signed off to whomever it is, which I'm pretty certain it will be Boys and Girls Club, but if we have a written statement to suggest that we're engaging in communication, we're engaging in offering opportunities to do that, we can at least say that they're at the table.
Call roll.
Councilman Chang, you did vote no?
Yes.
Councilman Delgado, vote no?
Yes.
Gilliam?
No.
Kurtz?
Yes.
Marsh?
Yes.
Randolph?
Yes.
Shabazz?
I'm voting yes on the first reading, and let me state for the record, Mr. President, as I talk to you, I think it's important that we get input from other groups, and when we come to the second reading, I'll look at that to determine how to vote on the second reading. I vote yes on the first reading.
Shabazz? Yes. Tibbet?
No.
Vote no. And Small?
Yes.
5 in the affirmative and 4 in the negative. I'm sorry I went out of order. We do have ordinance 14C, which was pulled by Councilman Kurtz for discussion. This is an ordinance to amend chapter 243.
May I have a motion?
Move it.
Moved by Marsh,
Second.
second by Shabazz. Discussion?
The question I have with this is, has there been any research, study, work done by either the people that are interested in this area or the administration with regard to the impact on parking? I want to know what consideration has been given to what impact 14C would have on parking, especially in that neighborhood.
President? Let's take a brief recess. Changing the tape. Ready to have? No, we're running.
Dan can put them back. Dan can knock something back.
Council President, we're back on the record with ordinance 14C. We have a motion by Councilman Marsh and a second by Councilman Shabazz.
14C.
All right. Let's go.
Let's go. What are we looking at?
14C, call it.
I had a question, Council President, hasn't been answered.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And my question was, what was the impact, or has there been any type of study or any consideration to the impact that this change would have to parking in this particular neighborhood?
So, Councilman Kurtz, the this ordinance is limited to the restaurant aspect of the project and won't add additional parking concerns for the area. I think your concern relates to the residential aspect of the project, which has already received final site plan approval from the planning board.
I mean, doesn't this, my read on this, and from talking to some people that live in the neighborhood, is that by designating this loading zone, we're in effect removing parking from the neighborhood where parking's already a concern, coupled with, as you mentioned, granted it's not in this piece of legislation, but that there was a decision made by another city body to waive a parking requirement, which is going to introduce more cars and not add to the parking in the neighborhood. So I guess specifically on the loading zone, doesn't that remove parking?
But it also prevents circumstances arising from people double parking and people finding other parking spots that are just going in to grab something at the restaurant. That was the balance that was intended to be struck.
Which restaurant?
It's
There's no one at Dairy Queen that's going to build. We compliment the Stockton and everything else.
So we have an idea what restaurant?
Councilman Kirschner.
This kid don't want it
Yes,
right
sir.
there. He was screaming at me for it.
The key is, right, so this allows space for a commercial entity to have loading opportunities, right? So if we're gonna move this, we need to do it for the entire, all the merchants that are on Atlantic Avenue that are still getting tickets and things of that nature. So as we're doing this, we should be doing it comprehensively, because Dale and I just had a conversation with merchants that still getting tickets in front of entities in which they own. So I think it's important for us to do it holistically and just not for just one piece, because it's a problem all throughout the city.
And this is good to have this loading zone there, because all the stores on Ventnor Avenue, on both sides of the street, can also use this as loading as well. So it's a much needed thing in that neighborhood, because what you see now is the Pepsi trucks and the other trucks and delivery trucks, they pull up and they double park, and it creates a mess, especially being a block and a half from the monument and that light not being synchronized with the other ones. It creates such a bottleneck there when there's deliveries and stuff. So this is long overdue, this loading zone anyway, for that neighborhood.
Absolutely.
And it goes to help with the Trenton to Harrisburg, to Dover.
Right.
So,
I mean,
or Dover to.
Well, your point is well taken. If we were to just think of the loading zone for the issue of double parking, when you think of it in conjunction with what's actually happening there, which is a new development, which as a side note, it's great to see development, but in this case, the manner in which it's being presented, that there's no secondary consideration to acquire more parking for what's going to be an influx of cars in a neighborhood that already is short on parking. It fixes one issue, namely the Pepsi trucks, but it exacerbates a real issue of parking in the neighborhood that, with all the money that's being spent on this project, it's disappointing that there's not a consideration or money expended to add parking to, at the very least, cover the impact of the new development, if not being a good partner to the people that live and work in the neighborhood, that live above the stores, that live in the apartment complexes there, that people have cars. And this is something that you hate to see it become a, well, I don't want the development because of the parking. Like, I don't even know why we're at this point, that why people come and do considerable investment and just don't have this as part of the consideration that, hey, we need to account for parking, just like we need to account for fire prevention, just like we need to account for our liquor license. And in this case, that's the concern, and I at least want that on the record for my colleagues to consider.
Council President, I think I'd just like to touch up on something that my colleague had mentioned as far as parking and development. I think sometimes we live in a bubble to believe that we have to constantly provide parking for businesses, and they feel like they can't live without parking. And it's sad because there's a certain mindset that happens too often with businesses feeling that it's necessary, when we have proven examples like in the larger metropolitan areas like Philadelphia or New York City, Baltimore, Washington, where parking is at an absolute premium beyond what we have, and businesses thrive. We have to be more creative on what we can do to engage individuals to have parking garages, of course. If there was a way that we could have partnerships with some of the corporations, maybe a co-op of businesses in that group that would come together to buy a portion to build a parking garage so it benefits their businesses, something like that moving forward. We have to just constantly we have to broaden our perspective when it comes to growth in the city. Our residents, we are feeling the congestion, because there's lots of people who come into the city, don't live in the city, who find our parking spots so they can maneuver their vehicles, avoid some of the fees that they have to pay to park somewhere else so they can go to work. And that's at a disadvantage, but I think that's another area that we're talking about trying to alleviate too, which is creating the parking permit process and trying to be a little bit more adamant about that to ensure that our residents have access to the parking that's supposed to be there. So in my end, I just wanted to say that we just have to, can't be myopic. We have to look further, and sometimes the engagement of concepts of having appropriate parking for the business is not necessarily something that we have to consider as much as an opportunity for that business to flourish on its own.
Councilman Delgado, being a resident of the Sixth Ward, known this area very well my entire life. Make Harrisburg Avenue one way going towards offshore, and then you get 20 to 25 more parking spots on the Ventnor side of the street. Those houses have never wanted parking. There's like 5 houses there, and they've never wanted parking in front of their houses. Well, you're in a city. Parking's at a premium. Make Harrisburg one way, you loop around and you come up Dover Avenue, it's one way going the other way, and you create 20 to 25 more parking spots. If parking's that much of a problem, let's do what's best for the community and investigate putting those 20, 25 parking spots on the books for everybody to use. Because my very first house in 91 was right in that neighborhood, and there's 40 to 50 stores there. And not one of those stores have one parking spot between them. You have a lot that we just, when we tore down one of the problem buildings on Dover and Ventnor, that was torn down and put for a community parking so that it would help alleviate and make it easier to get in and out of those stores. But if you go down Chelsea in that area, you're gonna find one block in that entire area that has parking on one side of the street only, and that's Harrisburg Avenue, the well-connected, the people that are traditionally connected, the people that were able to keep parking off that side of the street forever. Times have changed. Make it one way, loop around, come up Dover Avenue and go out, create 20 to 25 parking, take that tax rateable on the Dairy Queen lot and put that get that project started. We've got to be developer friendly here.
People on Harrisburg Avenue got connections?
Well, they used to. It was all Mayor White's. It was all the old timers, yeah, and they kept it out from parking. If you lived around it, you know the family names, and you know they had connections back in the day. Yes, yes, they did. So there's your answer.
Chang?
Yes.
Delgado?
Yes.
Gilliam?
No.
Kurtz?
No.
Marsh?
Yes.
Randolph?
Yes.
Shabazz?
Yes.
Tibbet?
Yes.
And Small.
Yes.
7 in the affirmative, 2 in the negative. We have Resolution 614 from Planning and Development, pulled by Councilman Kurtz.
May I have a motion?
Move it.
Moved by
Second.
Shabazz, second by Hill.
Yeah, and I guess, not to repeat everything I just said, but I have similar concerns about this. And the one additional piece of information, I appreciated what Councilman Tibbet just offered. There are other people who are doing development in that area. You go a block over to Trenton. You have people that are planning what looks like it's going to be beautiful student housing. And on their end, one of the things that they're very clear of coming to the table on is a parking plan. From day one, from the get-go, they're coming with a solution for parking. So there's already a parking problem there, which this new developer didn't cause. It exists. But not only are they accounting for the impact in the neighborhood by building a parking garage and having plans and by building another structure to think about parking, they're actually helping their neighbors on Trenton Avenue and their neighbors at Wonder Bar and their neighbors on Sunset at dealing with an existing problem. And I would just contrast that with this project. And again, I wish them the best. I'm excited to see it happening. But I just think it's frustrating that we've come to this point where, due to the way that they've chosen to engage this project, they've set it up as a mutually exclusive thing. And there are other options in there to acquire land, to make arrangements, and to shape the development in such a way that you have both. You have your cake and you eat it too. And so I'm putting that out there, and I don't think it's too late to make the right decision, to get back to the drawing board and to account for what is a tremendous issue for everybody, for our residents, for our businesses, and for our visitors, for our new friends, and for our people that have been there for years. We set up these issues like it has to be one or the other, and this absolutely can be both. We can have a fantastic new development for the students and for the residents, and we can pay attention to parking instead of ignoring it and trying to get these exceptions all the time.
Jess, you make a very valid point, but each case is different. The Point project, they have the luxury to have an empty lot next to it that they basically have fortunate enough to say, okay, we're going to utilize parking. And you got to look at these things on a project by project basis, because on Harrisburg, there's really no room to do anything. And in a sense, I look at these things as good problems, because we're talking about advancing and developing things. So it's a good problem to have in terms of saying, okay, we got to figure out something because someone's building or someone's improving something. But it's a case-by-case basis, and this leads to a greater conversation later, because parking is going to be of a premium in that area, because once Stockton opens and South Jersey Gas opens, we're hoping that those parking garages that South Jersey Gas has and some of the public spaces that they're willing to give the community will actually help alleviate some congestion elsewhere, because they have allotted certain spots in the garages for public use as well. So hopefully we'll be able to find a happy medium where we consider looking at parking as being a premium in areas where there is no parking. And also too, for the investor, right? For the investor that comes in and there's no space for a parking lot, I don't know if we can force that, but we can actually begin to look at how we study that impact of growth that we're going to be basically facing in the future.
And I think in addition to that, Councilman, we should look at, what is the opportunity to get them to build garages when they develop.
Right.
We know we can't go out,
gotta
so
go
of
up.
course we got to go up.
Absolutely.
So with that in mind, something should be discussed with each developer that comes up that way, possibly, doing a garage, and also if there's an opportunity for the residents to maybe, if it's not loaded or filled. And then I don't know how much free land we have up there that we own.
That we should be using.
We might be able to look at in terms of a garage or some agreement with someone that we put a garage up there. And it's to the point that we got to go up because we can't go out.
Speaking, you brought up something real quick, not to belabor this, but aren't these things that we should be addressing when the planning board decides if it's going to authorize a development or not? Because that's the opportunity when the community as well as the board can chime in on, hey, what about the parking? Hey, what about shrubbery? Those are the times that us as a body, because if it comes back to us, right, and the board hasn't addressed it, we still have the ability, like Mr. Kurtz is saying, hold up, we need to address parking with this development.
But guess what though? Real quick. Guess who appoints the planning board?
Who's that?
Have a good evening.
Let me say this, I am very sensitive to everybody's concerns about parking, but I would just hate for us to send the wrong signal to developers. And I think it's a balance. We have to encourage development, and we have to look out for parking. So maybe through the planning department, maybe we need to look at a parking study or some way to see how we can come up with some kind of rational plan to address parking. But I think it would be and I'm not saying this in a pejorative way to my council colleague, but I think would be, particularly at this point in our development, to not support a developer. I think that would be.
But still, at what cost? we gonna support them, and I think my statement was a partnership or something.
No, I'm agreeing with you.
CIA,
Yeah,
CIT spending a
you
lot
know,
of money on
clean,
that stuff, so
I
get
never
some
want
in the
to stop
garage.
development. I just want to make sure that, you know, it don't overrun the people that's been there for so long.
I'm agreeing with you, but I'm saying, each case is different, like Councilman Gilliam said. I was at the groundbreaking for the Trenton thing. They have the luxury of land, so they can do that.
Yeah.
And this particular project doesn't have that luxury, is all I'm saying. And I just think, you know, we have to go through it, but I just don't want to send a bad signal to developers, that's all I'm saying.
Maybe if we would've had someone do a study on where we put parking meters, not just for the sake of just putting them in places, we might have been a little better off now, but that's something that I think that we have to address in terms of merchants should have the ability to have parking passes and things of that nature, where we've had so many tickets just being given because someone was allotted the position to put a meter just anywhere. And again, I'm not gonna belabor it, but the point is, we gotta be more proactive and forward-thinking when we do these things.
I guess, my last comment, Councilman Tippett brought up a good solution that was developed at some point. That was when they demoed the building at Dover and Ventnor, and they added parking there in the corner. And that's a great solution. And I think that even if you can't fit an entire garage in that area, that there needs to be better coordination between departments, that maybe there's a house that's on the demo list in that area. And that I think if the people in that neighborhood knew that this was on our radar concretely, they knew that we were looking at the list of places to be demolished, if they knew that there was a conversation, some thoughtfulness, I think they would give us the benefit of the doubt. But it's not just me up here harping on parking.
Right.
This is something that's a real concern, whether you live at Landmark Towers or you live above one of those stores on Ventnor Avenue, you live on the side street, working people that are most likely working now and can't speak at this meeting. And I want to make sure that their voice is heard on this record. You know, they weren't able to hire professionals and such, but their voice should be heard on this issue. And it's a tremendous, the ward I represent, Lower Chelsea, like this is maybe a bigger issue than anybody else's ward. Maybe not, but it's a tremendous issue in Lower Chelsea.
Right.
Significant.
I hear you.
Call the vote.
Chang,
Yes.
Delgado,
Yes.
Gilliam,
Yes.
Kurtz,
No.
Marsh,
Yes.
Randolph,
Yes.
Shabazz,
Yes.
Tibbet,
Yes.
Small,
Yes.
8 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative. We have a resolution 625 from Planning and Development, pulled by Councilman Gilliam.
May I have a motion?
Move it.
Moved by Shabazz, second by Randolph. Discussion.
Yes, how much money did we net from the sale of these properties?
We haven't sold them, Councilman, they proposed. You mean the last sale?
Yeah,
The last sale, you mean, Ben?
last sale.
The last sale was approximately 1.2 million.
And and where'd that money go? Did it go into the general budget? Or what did we do with it?
We haven't closed on most of the sales yet, but my understanding is that it goes into the general budget.
What's your guesstimation on, because we heard that we netted some number before when we went out to auction, and it was nowhere near that because the $5 million that we were supposed to have sold Riverside for, we never actually even sold it. It's up for auction again. So legitimately, I'm gonna humbly ask you, how much did we render from the last auction?
1.2 million.
Okay. And we're projected to get what from this auction?
We don't have a projection.
You have to have a set number, a minimum number that you're actually willing to sell the property for.
So right now, we only have the assessed value of the properties, but most of the assessments are pretty far out of whack.
Which we know no one's gonna buy those for those, right? So does that put us in
So the protection we have against selling property for less than the city thinks or the city council thinks it's worth is that following the auction, the high bids have to come back to city council for approval. So city council at that point will get a chance
We
to
know
say,
that process never works. And we also know that we have parcels that have been sitting dormant for 30 years plus with no one building. Like that's the whole part of revitalizing and rejuvenating the city. We want people to buy so they can develop, not buy so they can sit in empty parcels and they don't maintain them, and then we have to go through the process of having someone pay to go cut the grass or whatever. But the key is, when we begin to auction, why aren't we basically, because one, I'm opposed to auction, as you already know, that's been my mantra forever, but how come we aren't trying to create redevelopment designations for people? Because we have parcels on here where there's assemblages. Somebody may want to come and do something because the footprint is larger. Most people aren't going to come and buy a 35 by 50. To do what with? If you can put that along with a 50 by 150 and then the 25 by 150, now you have a larger blueprint. That gives opportunity for a developer or someone that's really serious about doing something. So, and plus, if we basically netted 1.2, right? And that went into the general budget.
General fund.
General fund?
Yeah.
And what did you do, what does it do when it goes into the general fund?
It was about to, in the fund balance and reduce deficits
Reduce deficit, and have we reduced any deficit?
by 1.2 million.
By 1.2 million. And has that affected the tax rate? In what capacity? When you say yes, it has, it doesn't reflect on my bill, on my tax records.
Bitumen to pumping.
That's what I'm saying, like, we do these things, right, because we want to consider ourselves doing the right thing with money, right? Sometimes money is not the solution. Sometimes developing and getting neighborhoods and communities revitalized makes more sense than just taking the dollar. And we've been here, and we're not trying to repeat history, because again, you can look up and down Pacific Avenue and beach blocks that have had empty parcels for centuries because we just auctioned it off and no one's really looking to develop and make any good of those particular parcels. So I'm just, again, that's just my 2 cents on auctioning. One last question. Is there going to be any more property to develop after this auction?
So
You guys
I was gonna
you guys
say-
have sold damn near everything,
I
or
think-
tried to anyway.
I agree with you that some properties are more ripe for redevelopment than auction. And those properties that we think are more ripe for that process are not on the list, so like a Riverside.
That's what I'm saying. When you guys say "we think," right, we also means that I'm a part of the we. He's a part of the we. They're a part of the we. The community's a part of the we. You just can't make these we decisions, right, for neighborhoods and communities that looks like crap, right? If we're not able to have people buy parcels and do something with it, it doesn't send, like our kids grow up in neighborhoods like Drexel Avenue over there, man. Looks like the pits. And for some reason, we think that accepting money overrules the fact that we need people to buy and develop. Is just something fundamentally I think we've missed the boat on for too long. So is there any more parcels, any more land or real estate that the city is going to have to be removed? Because you just mentioned one. That's one out of, what, 1 out of 3?
Yeah, there are a number of other large assemblages. We can talk about that if you like after the council meeting, but there's.
No, I don't need a sidebar conversation, because all I need to know is there property for us to be able to do what Atlantic Cityans are looking for us to do when it comes to development?
Yes.
And how many guesstimation is that?
So.
That's the guesstimation.
There are three or four large properties that I think fit the definition of what you're talking about in terms of redevelopment.
Council, may I suggest to you also, in answer that, though Ben's qualified to answer for itself, but one of those things, we need to get the CRDA and see some of the land that they're holding. That's one of the answers to development. We need to sit with them. If they're not going to develop the land, they meaning CRDA, then they should give that back to us through a process.
I agree with those sentiments, but I'm talking about when I'm looking at 80 by 159, right? I'm looking at parcels that, because we decide that the square footage isn't conducive for one thing, but that doesn't mean the square footage isn't conducive for something else. And then we just say, okay, we want to sell it. But where does the city take the bull by the horn and say, we're going to decide who we sell what with, because they have the financial capability to get us the end game, which is development? A structure put on these things so people can begin to see Atlantic City rebuilding itself, not just, okay, I own this land and I got 50 years to figure something out. Do we even put timelines in these things? Because you know we can't put a timeline in something if we outright auction it and sell it, because once it's out of our coffers, we have no ability to force someone to push. That's why leasing and partnering with the city gives us the ability to put timelines in place where someone may just sit on something. It's just, I'm just frustrated with the fact that we keep on going around the circle doing the same thing. We're insane right now. That's the definition, right? Doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different outcome, right? Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it.
Finish.
I believe so, sir. Thank you.
Chang?
No.
Delgado?
No.
Gilliam?
No.
Kurtz?
Yes.
Marsh?
Yes.
Randolph?
Yes.
Shabazz?
Yes.
Tibbet?
No.
And Small.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 4 in the negative.
One of y'all gonna break the ice one of these days.
Jackie did last time.
We have resolution 626, pulled by Councilman Tibbet.
Yeah.
That's by myself.
Pulled by Councilman Tibbet. This is to award a contract to Marathon Engineering.
What are we voting on, 626?
Marathon. I was just reading on the fact, did this go out to bid because the bid box wasn't checked off on, and there's no RFQ numbers on the bid box, on the other bid box?
I think it,
Or was this just one of those companies we're allowed to, assign stuff to out of the 4 or 5 that you picked at the beginning of the year?
I believe, Ben is here, I believe this is from the list that we authorized. Is that correct?
So it's not the bid. You know,
We voted on that.
no, we voted on that list of people.
Right.
But you got Atlantic City companies that do this. Trouble paying their taxes, people that pay their taxes, people that, I mean, we don't pick one of the Atlantic City companies?
I don't think there was a Atlantic City company on the list for
Ponzio's
this.
not an Atlantic City company. For the record, I've never received a dime donation from for anything. I'm just saying Atlantic City people, that'll be the next thing. Oh, they give money.
Because we chose a list, right, does not mean that you just
That'll be
can
the next
usurp
thing.
or go around the process,
We want to see your email.
right? The list
Motion and
only
second.
means that we identify people that we want to do this particular business with.
No disrespect, no interruption, but I was just informed that we got a little bit ahead of ourselves. The clerk said it was never a motion or a second, it was just discussion.
All right, we'll make the
And,
motions.
and I apologize for that error and lapse in judgment on my behalf.
Okay, so
So
motion.
make the motion. Second. Okay. Continue? Can we continue?
I'm pausing,
So the list wasn't voted on so you could just do what you want with it, right? It's still a process that it's supposed to go through, right? So when you have those things that aren't checked off and things of that nature, what does that mean? We pick a list and we don't have to follow the rules?
No, we have to follow the rules.
We haven't.
But there's no competitive pricing on this.
Well,
So we do solicit quotes. It just for this specific contract, Marathon Engineering. So there's 2 grants on Delta Basin homes, 2 cleanup grants.
On where?
Delta Basin.
It's uptown.
This property we're talking about.
Delta Basin, that's Maryland Avenue. That's been, supposed to have been remediated 50 times already. Because I recall Delta Basin homes being remediated at least twice. So explain to me how much dirty dirt is there that we continuously find ourselves remediating Delta Basin homes for the 15th time.
I can only speak to the 2 existing grants.
No, hold up, did a meteorite hit that or something? Because it's gotta be some kind of special contamination that's on that plot. Because I remember one time, as a matter of fact, we went out to bid and had Delta Basin Homes as one of the parcels that someone could develop on. So how do we do that and it's not clean? So, again, I'm finding ourselves spending additional money on something that was supposed to be clean and something that people have chosen that they wanted to develop on. Now it needs to be remediated again?
So this contract is 100% grant funded.
No, regardless, my point is, right, just because we can get grant money, right, and someone can go out and test the same dirt and find out that the dirt is clean, or find out that a section of it isn't, doesn't mean that we just go out to grant to give an organization or engineer some money. When are we gonna be able to hire someone, and when they're done, they're able to tell us that this parcel is ready for development, it's clean?
How many of the qualified vendors provided estimates for this job?
I don't know. What I was gonna
Is it
say-
more than one?
What I was going to say originally is that this specific contract, there's 2 grants on the site. Marathon Engineering already has the cleanup grant for the HDSRF grant for petroleum in the soil.
So they didn't they get that out already?
No, because it just makes more sense for them to have the contract so they can do the scope of work holistically.
both from them.
And then one remediation company will end up doing the entire job in terms of the actual remediation.
Mr. Rick, I need help. I need help. I need help because, again, we spent on that partial, I know, a guesstimation of almost $500,000 in remediation, right? Whether it's grant funded or what have you. At what point does it come to it's clean or it can't be built on? Because if people continue to tell us that we need to go out and remediate it, maybe it's not one of those parcels that can be developed for something else. Maybe it has to be capped and grassed. But if you continue to show me that there's engineers that continuously show us that there's a problem, and we pay for it to fix it, or we find that grants are good to just take so we can pay people. That doesn't work.
Councilman Gilman, can I suggest this? I hear you. Can we have Mr. Kaufman reach out to Marathon for the property that you're talking about and prepare a report for us so that we'll have.
Can I get a dirt sample?
How much is it gonna cost for that report? The way
But
Marathon
it shouldn't
charges.
cost anything if they've already been working on it and.
You've got a good point there. Have you been working on it?
You never do anything for free.
And I'm done.
They would have to give us a report. I mean, I'm not trying to be flippant, but if we have a contractor that is doing work for the city, it's incumbent upon them to give us a report if we ask for it, to show what they're doing. That's part of the process.
Yeah, because.
So maybe that would.
We paid them 3 or 4 times, it should be some kind of final report that it's capable of development or.
I'd like to expand on that request and ask for those parcels. I need a 10-year report of how many times someone has done remediation on that land.
It's public record.
Right.
Get that.
And one last thing while we're on remediation, are we finished remediating the piece behind the Boys and Girls Club?
I'll have to look into that for you.
Don't you come up here next month with another opportunity for an engineer to, isn't that piece supposed to be finished and ready to put some kind of vegetation on?
We're talking about the park?
Talking about the parcel right next to Boys and Girls Club.
Yes.
Where
It's in the park, so it's been remediated, yes. And it's in the process, the park is being built right now.
Is it?
Yeah.
Who's out there doing work?
Wilkerson, they're not out there right now, but they have a contract.
When are they coming? Because that's my point, they said, we authorized that, and now I ride past there, it's tumbleweeds and everything back there, and that's a property that we own, and we paid good money for it to be complete, and kids and whoever gets the Ushery Park is gonna have to come outside with gravel, rocks, and all that other nonsense when it was supposed to be, believe it, it's supposed to be some type of vegetation on it, grass and all that kind of stuff, right? So, are we paying for the grass too? Are we gonna pay for the grass that's not there?
When it's there, we'll pay for it, yes.
Thank you, man, appreciate it.
Point being, we complain about contractors coming into town all the time building, not hiring Atlantic City residents, and here we are giving work to outsiders that seem to get every little single thing that out of the CRDA, or you don't get, I'm gonna stop
Because it's grant funded.
before I get in trouble.
It was grant funded.
But you have Atlantic City people that can do this, well qualified, that have damn near built this city, and it's just ridiculous that we want to yell at other people that do their private building when we don't do our own enforcement. We have to set the example and stop giving, these people don't do nothing for us, and their prices are always high. And they do absolutely everything at the CRDA. Every project that goes through there, Marathon gets. What about the Atlantic City contractors who've been here since the beginning of time? It don't get nothing. Did they open an office here somewhere? I mean, other than a one room somewhere?
Just to receive the check.
Call the roll.
Chang,
Yes.
Delgado,
No.
Gilliam,
No.
Kurtz,
No.
Marsh,
Yes.
Randolph,
Yes.
Shabazz,
Yes.
Tibbet,
No.
and Small.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 4 in the negative. We don't have
Whoa, there it is.
We had the chance.
resolution
Damn you, Jimmy.
604, which was pulled by Councilman Tibbet from Revenue and
Okay.
Finance, and this is to request proposals for banking services.
Okay, I brought this up for a reason.
Motion and second?
Oh, sorry.
Motion, I move.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay. You making a motion? Is it on?
Moved by Delgado, second by Shabazz.
Okay. I brought this up for a reason. As all of us have been involved in elections in the last 2 years, we always claim to help the little people. And it's always our campaign motto to help the little people. Now, I was at TD Bank last week, and they charge people that don't have accounts there $7 to cash a check, whether that's a $100 check or a $20 check.
Everybody's doing it now.
Yeah, but if you're gonna use our money, and hold our money, those fees are too much, unfair, and it's only because we're an urban city, and it's very busy at that bank. I mean, maybe we put something in there, if somebody has an Atlantic City driver's license, they can only charge $3. Or something in your bid request that, that you have to service the people a little bit better, but that's outright gouging the little people.
Everybody's doing it now.
I know they're doing it, but when you make, but you can go in there and scream and yell, and you can make them sign off on it and not charge that $7. I've done it with many of people that have done it with my checks that I pay people, and they're gonna charge them $7 with my bank accounts, and I made them sign off and not charge that $7. So nothing, don't ever say nothing, it's final. I mean, it's something we should look into. If they're gonna take our money, millions of dollars in their accounts, they're gonna use that money to invest, they're using our money to make money. There's, check into, we have some say on what we're gonna do. I mean, another thing, I got 5 accounts there, and I went home and I looked at my bills. I'm paying $60 a month because I never opened up that envelope in fees. So people, check your fees, because these banks are starting to bang the hell out of you with these fees for your checking and everything else. So look at your fees. It cost me $50 a month. That's $600 a year when you add it up. But I'm just saying, I brought that up because it's maybe simple, and it may only be $7 to you and me, but to someone that doesn't have, and a lot of people in the city don't have, to charge them $7 to cash a check. A check cashing place isn't that much money.
Especially when you got millions of dollars in that bank.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. We have a little say when we put millions and millions in there, and they're using our money. It's just something we all go out and campaign on helping the little people. Well, this is tiny, but you know what? It means a lot to the people that don't have. That's why I wanted to bring it up to you, and when that goes out to RFQ, maybe we put something in there as part of the service to get our money that the people of Atlantic City pay $3 to cash a check or something, and then they don't have to bid on it. They don't want. We'll find someone that'll take that money.
Can we do that, Mr. Solicitor?
Well, it won't be him. We'd have to find out from people doing the RFQs, and they'd have to call the state.
It's legal to do that, to structure.
We can request it, but whether their council says they can do it and they're gonna avoid a lawsuit for discriminating against folks who are not city residents, that's up to their legal counsel.
Okay.
Well, the taxpayers,
We can tell them we're
the
gonna
taxpayers
take out
are the
$40-50
client.
million out of their coffers, and they can make a decision there or not.
Has
All this
anybody-
about legal fees, man, please.
Has anybody ever-
We some lawyers with balls.
When you put large deposits in banks, it does give you some leverage to talk to
Absolutely.
those entities
And get some.
and find out what they can and cannot do, because it's simple negotiating. And we can't decide whether a bank or anybody will do anything until we go and try to talk to them and ask them at least.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You
The
can
residents
ask
of
them.
Atlantic City are the client. We're handing the residents of Atlantic City's money, so it's not discrimination because every single person in the city of Atlantic City is the client. We work for all those people.
Well, it might be discrimination, that's why I'm saying we need to check, and let our legal staff give us some advice. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Just want to bring that up because we
No,
always
I'm
claim
agreeing
to
with
help
you.
the little people. and we see
Councilman, I'm
that.
agreeing with
Yeah.
you.
No,
I'm saying let's devise a way that we can see if we can do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I have another question, separate question. We've been trying to put the permitting online now for about 2 years. And when I mean that, anybody wants to fill out an application with the city to try to put it online. And one of the big reasons it's always given why it can't happen, even though somebody could code up a form, is banking. And I've been told a number of times that we're waiting on a banking RFP to go out so that way we could start handling online payments for applications. Is this the famous banking services RFP that we've been waiting for?
Yes.
All right.
But Justice, it's also as well, we don't have the software that speaks to each other that will allow that. So it's software that has to be compatible before the bank can even basically step in. And I think we're at a point where the software isn't talking to each other enough to go to the next step. And I think that's something that you should look into and to make sure that the software is compatible enough to work, coexist with each other, to be able to get to that point. Because they'll tell us the banking, but it's actually the software that doesn't speak to each other. To be able to get the encryption to be able to get to that point.
No, point's well taken. I mean, unfortunately, we became so antiquated here in the city that
Jurassic Park.
it's like everything needs to be replaced, but rather than say it all needs to be replaced and we don't do anything, it's like, all right, well, let's take it piece by piece. So let's get the software suite. Let's upgrade that. Let's upgrade our hardware, which
Even
we've
the
been
state-
doing that with MIS. But the big piece that wasn't moving was the merchant services, the ability to process the payment through a banking. And this is an important piece. It's not everything, so your point's very well taken.
You know what's odd is
But
that
this is very important point to
It-
this.
There's an importance to what we're talking about, what we need. Whether this is the importance, I beg to argue, only because I know how the state works with the Department of Treasury, has had to filter out and look for a secondary business to do this, to afford Division of Motor Vehicles, which is now a private entity, the Department of Taxation, and those entities alone are using a PayPal portal. PayPal. Not something that's super encrypted, something because PayPal is already a secured business, secured from Israel, having the top security realms. What's that, Copernic, I forget the other, the top 3 encryption firms in the world have protected PayPal to do something like this. So it's not that we couldn't attach PayPal to our systems. Sometimes we overread and overanalyze. Sometimes it's the most easiest application to say, yes, we'd like to use PayPal. We understand there's a fee to use PayPal. then our services can be used, monitored, and regulated and reported, because it's an FCC thing, to find out how PayPal is used. So we have better reporting, and that's just an option. We have to make sure that what we have is what we're getting, not what we hope for, because too often that's been what we talked about. And someone said, yeah, that's what you're gonna get, and that's not what we end up getting. So moving forward, we agree, we do need electronic commerce. We need this to move forward. And I think, with the new mayor-elect, we're gonna make sure, we're gonna keep pushing this whole concept to keep pushing, moving forward. But we have to make sure that it works for us, not just works for everyone else. And this is what we've done too often. Man, what was that?
That was an alarm.
That was a hit the pole.
Call a vote. That's the call a vote sound.
Okay. I got it.
Delgado,
No.
Gillian,
No.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Randolph,
Yes.
Shabazz,
Yes.
Tibbet,
Yes,
and Small.
Yes.
we're gonna create the art.
6 in the affirmative, 2 in the negative. We have resolution 620,
Is this the last one?
no, which was pulled, 620 from Revenue and Finance. It was pulled by Councilman Kurtz, and this is November transfer number 1.
Move it.
Moved by Gaines, second by Kurtz.
The question I had on this is that in the budget transfer, does this include moving around the funds so we can buy recycling cans for the residents?
How about recycling and trash cans?
Well, our vendor was on record that they were giving us some cans. Now, I don't think we've seen them yet, but they were saying that we were getting a shipment of trash cans, but there wasn't anything about recycling.
Did you guys get trash cans yet?
Shame we can't get rid of that.
Paul, did we get trash cans yet?
Yes, the trash cans are actually being delivered next week. The old metal already we have in stock.
Surprised the mayor didn't give them out with
Are they,
books.
those are the plastic ones again?
These are the 65 gallons, yes.
How many?
So what about with the trash cans you have? Can we recycle those?
No, well, actually, we have been recycling those, keeping those. Some of those we've actually turned into recycling containers, by just changing the.
I'm shocked.
We have over 500 that came in that are in stock yet. They will be delivered.
So there's no,
So
there's
we
no
have
trade?
There's no trade. There's no trade.
You're saying we have recycling cans now?
Councilman Gillen was asking me about trash cans.
Trash.
Are you speaking about recycling cans?
I'm still on the trash can
Okay,
because,
thank you. Trash cans are gonna be delivered, this coming.
because you're gonna probably have to, get a lot more from them because these squirrels that continuously chew up the lid on the plastic trash cans cause more of a nuisance for Public Works than a little bit because they go into they chew out the top, they end up going into the garbage can, dragging trash up and down people's lawns and things of that nature. Is there a product out there that we can look forward? Yeah, they do.
Called dogs.
That we could potentially look at a product that prevents,
Rodent free.
because right now.
Rodent sheriff.
Most people are asking for new trash cans because, it's not because they're wear and tear, it's because the squirrels have chewed the holes in the lids.
He's not lying, brother. He's not lying. He is
And even then, how long has Gold Metal had this
Cayenne
contract already? For a while now, right? A couple months?
Several months.
Several months now. We're just getting trash cans now?
Yes.
How many are we getting?
But they ensured that the big bins that were out there in other areas, they
They are
made sure the
stable.
big bins were out there, but
They're-
the independent trash can were.
There are 65 gallons.
Are you gonna have to meet downstairs with your
There's a
ID?
lock mechanism that can be installed. One, the trash can is one of the problems why the squirrels are getting in there and chewing, because they're able to, squirrel up under the lid, but there are like locking mechanisms.
No, forget about a lot, they are chewing the top.
Through it.
The top to get inside. They don't have an opportunity to get in, they chew their way through to get in.
I'll look into that.
Yeah, we got some.
Cayenne pepper.
Councilman Gilman, we supply him with a video, because I know exactly what you're talking about. They vicious.
Chewed all my electrical wires, chewed a hole in my house.
I would, and also, it's a side note, just to think, we're in the disposition that we are now, and we've had to outsource our sanitation department. We're just getting some materials several months later. And in the process of doing so, I'm thinking to myself, if it was still in-house, we wouldn't have this issue. If it was still in-house, we wouldn't have some of the issues that we talked about now.
In all due respect, they was chewing them up before we got the contract.
True, but we wouldn't have to
And,
wait 6 months for
my
some
trash is
right?
picked up on a regular basis.
Yep.
And there's no problem, but Mo,
Yep. Not waiting
no
2-3
man
days.
improvisation is not good friends.
Yep. Our good men and women would have made sure everything was taken care of.
Yes, sir.
Call the vote.
Chang,
Yes.
Delgado,
Pass.
Gilliam,
Yes.
Kurtz,
No.
Come on, Jesse.
Marsh,
Yes, with a kind of concern.
Randolph,
Yes. Curtis.
Shabazz, Tibbet,
Yes.
Delgado,
Yes.
Jimmy messed
Small.
things up.
Can we bring it back before the executive session, please?
8 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative. We now have resolution 464. This is from the Department of, under administration. This was pulled by Councilman Kurtz.
May I have a motion?
Move it.
Second.
Move by Gideon, second by Curtis.
We were supposed to talk about this. The reason I put this for question is that there was some discussion last meeting. We were supposed to talk about this in committee, and people were supposed to get facts. We got some of them today on the dais, and I apologize, we weren't able to meet as a committee, so I would respectfully ask if we could table this, discuss it with the clerk's office in committee, and then come back
No
out.
problem.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Resolution postponed.
So it doesn't make it matter if I voted no on that, it was something else. Okay. So while we're on that, what are the concerns that the clerk's office had, or have we figured out?
Basically, it's procedural. The demand, it's not so much a, I would not say it's a transparency issue. It's the time frame in which we would have to respond to Oprah requests. Some of them, if you looked at it, for example, some items are to be provided immediately, budgets, invoices, contracts, those items, for example. If according to this, if the Oprah request is received before noon, a response is due that day by 5 p.m.
That's unrealistic.
That's just one small topic, but that's an important one. If you, it was actually being addressed today by Senator Weinberg in committee. I don't know what the outcome was, but right now there are a lot of aspects to this bill which have to be reviewed, revised, considered. But as far as the clerk, it would really add additional unrealistic expectations.
Paula, didn't your clerks association go on record against this? Or have they taken position?
Most, no, it has, yes.
Right.
Most municipalities have supported opposition to this, including the league.
Okay. So shouldn't that be something we follow?
That's what I was saying, we should support that, because we're supporting the clerk's office and their position.
Right.
I mean, if people want to vote on that. I mean, this goes back to what we were talking about. You know, I realize it was 8-1 a couple times tonight, but there's another side to it. And it's like, it's tough because we have a lot of respect for the clerk and the clerk's office, but there's more to that in the bill. And there's a number of entities and agencies that are on record saying that both Oprah and OPMA, or the Open Public Meetings Act, need to be updated for the sake of the general public, and things that have happened with technology and sources of data. And that bill, which is a bipartisan effort of Joe Panaccio and Loretta Weinberg, attempts to do that. I mean, maybe, this is why I want to talk about committee, maybe there's specific onerous requirements on the clerk's office, we could note that we don't agree with that and have some type of mix, but I just think just because everybody else is doing it isn't really like a good reason to do anything.
Now, we're not saying, because what I'm saying is that if their association, which understands and knows more than what we could ever know. And they've basically ventured out to say they have concerns. Because even that one simple example is enough to say, hey, you're putting an extreme amount of pressure on any clerk's office to say if you got something by a certain time, you gotta get an answer back. That puts an extreme amount of pressure on the clerk's office to even basically do their daily duties. And then you'll have people who utilize that aspect for litigation purposes.
Exactly.
Right, so now, if the clerk can't get that information back in time enough, now the city is poised for litigation and things of that nature. So it's very important that we take the insight of people who have the knowledge, not that we're following behind people that, but I think that it's important for us to take heed of the entities that have knowledge of what they need and what they want, opposed to us making the decisions that may cause us, because they're understaffed as is. And to have them have to deal with that, I think that that's a bit much for them.
And in some cases, depending on the situation, Oprah can be a department by itself.
Right, exactly.
You know?
Exactly. So
That's long board say something. Okay, let's move forward. Director Oprah.
So, the last resolution pulled by Councilman Delgado under Public Safety, Public Works is Resolution 615, authorizing additional work by bulk storage to construct a door for the salt room.
May I have a motion?
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Randolph, second by Shabazz.
Thank you, gentlemen. I was just inquiring about this because we spoke about this some times ago. If I'm not mistaken, the last large snowstorm that we had a subsequent conversation after that because the dome was filled with the residue that what it was, and we were talking about repairs. And we were touting ourselves because we have an ample amount of staff members that can rebuild, if not build, a brand new structure. And to do so would probably have saved us quite a bit when we first talked about this, that mechanism some three to 4 years ago. So to do this, again, this is outsourcing a service that I know that we are capable of doing. Or is this something that was a figure, something that was already pre-made and someone shipped it in and someone needs to install it and they $15,000 for 6 guys to come in with power drills and large bolts? Is that the case? Are we building it or is it pre-made, prefab?
The doors are actually being built by the company who installed the SBR. The door itself is made about 30 feet high and about 20 feet wide, capable of allowing tractor rail runs and also linear rail to bring salt into the dump. I do not believe, I know they're very talented people, Councilman, but I believe we have enough staff that could build and direct that type of door assembly.
A door. I'm thinking back. I had a unique conversation with a gentleman about a good 6 years ago. He's the Public Works Director of Philadelphia. And the gentleman and I had a conversation, it was odd, I'm just making a reflection. And he talked about how the discussion of these domes, because of the way they're in their immediate mercy, these domes are built in a said way where doors aren't necessary. Doors get in the way. The actual mechanisms of the door, because we're dealing with salt, gets eroded, decay, or what have you. With all that being said, and the way domes are built now with the open source like an igloo, for it to have access, the actual oxidation process sometimes that's created or perpetuated because of the salt content, the access itself, the way it's built, doors have never been part of this whole plan.
I agree, Councilman, doors have never been part of the plan, nor was there an original door on this particular building. However, we were visited on several occasions by the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, who strongly recommended, because of environmental reasons and where we're at next to the Bay Area, that a door be placed on this building.
I'm wondering if the same EPA may have suggested this door company.
I couldn't answer that question.
Salt water, salt.
Exactly. I mean, exactly. It just sounds to me that again, someone's purging at our pockets And it's something that just, it makes no valid sense to me. It just doesn't. For an EPA to come in and discuss that, but then we have issues of petroleum sediment throughout the city. We've had an issue just recently in the summertime. We had an issue about excrement going into the ocean, but I don't see too much of an uproar in that with a nominal rate. So I think I'm kind of unmoved with my concept that we don't need no darn doors for this, because a door, it just looks to me like it's an unnecessary thing regardless of EPA. They can't prove that it's necessary because it's non-toxic. A lot of the, if I'm not mistaken, we work into the atmospheres. I remember we talked about that before, Paul, when we were talking about the substances, dealing with the human aspect. The salts can't be, there's a certain amount of decay or corrosion that we have to life for that may not be suitable for human consumption, but it's been used for the construction aspect. But we had to think about it because we're such a large residential community that we couldn't go for that amount, and then the degrees of how salt works and how it actually executes all those things in place. So to me, I'm trying to figure out, where is the cost? Is it a cost to the residents? Is there the potential help that the EPA is suggesting? Or is this a nominal amount that the EPA is trying to push out of us? And that this is a state EPA, not the federal EPA, right?
That's correct.
Okay, here we go. Another state agency trying to tap us. Again, I'm uncomfortable with this whole situation. I would like to see the EPA report with the toxicity amounts. I want to see all the surveys before I can say yes on a door that's going to decay in less than 3 months.
But if we don't do it, will we be fined?
Nah, they can't.
If we don't follow their recommendation, will we be fined somewhere down the line?
They'll take you to court.
Yes, could you answer that?
We can take it to court.
You can't
We can
answer
spend it.
it? You can't answer it, that question?
No, let me hear the question again.
Oh, the question was, if we don't do it, will we be fined when they come back down here to inspect us?
It was strongly recommended.
So the
Was
answer
it
is yes.
ordered?
Okay.
Strongly recommended.
Strongly recommended.
So it wasn't ordered, there was no written order. I mean, saltwater marshes, saltwater air, salt air.
The discussion dealt
But
with.
all of a sudden salt's dangerous?
How many other areas in the community or within a 100-mile radius that have the
Like
same
you said,
concerns
it
that we
wasn't
have?
ordered, Mo.
Do they have doors or not?
Suggested.
Exactly, it's a suggestion. It's a suggestion.
When it becomes
So
an
again,
order, you buy
Strongly
it.
suggest.
Yeah, exactly.
Not just suggestion, George,
Exactly.
strongly suggest.
Everything, that's like how many times we've
When
been
he gives
strongly
me an order,
suggesting we
I'll
need to
do
do this and do that with the state. Strongly suggest.
Strong.
Give me an order.
I strongly protest.
All right, call the vote, please. Is this the last one?
If not, we're gonna be addressing it in December.
Chang,
No.
Delgado,
No.
Gilliam.
No.
Kurtz.
Yes.
Marsh.
Yes.
Randolph.
Yes.
Shabazz.
Yes.
Tibbet
No.
and Small.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 4 in the
That's the
negative.
biggest joke tonight, the salt. You
And
got
that
saltwater
brings us
marshes,
to
saltwater
executive
beaches.
session.
May I have a motion?
Move it.
Moved by Shabazz,
Second.
second by Marsh.
Lion.
Okay, this is executive session A, Hamlet F versus City of Atlantic City Workers' Comp. Murray P versus City of Atlantic City Workers' Comp. Chang,
Yes.
Delgado,
Yes.
Gilliam,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Marsh.
Yes.
Randolph.
Yes.
Shabazz.
Yes.
Tibbet
Yes.
and Small.
No.
8 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative. About how long, please?
4 minutes.
10 minutes.
4 to 10 minutes.
Council President, we're back on the record. We have 2 resolutions after executive session. Resolution 609, authorizing settlement for Hamlet, and Resolution 610, authorizing Murray.
And for the record, it's 6:09 after Eric Cooper.
Wait a minute, that's
609.
All right, may I make a motion, group resolution 609 and 16?
Yes.
Moved by Curtis, second by Shabazz, call the vote.
Chang,
Yes.
Delgado,
Yeah.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Marsh.
Yes.
Randolph,
Yes.
Shabazz,
No. I'm just kidding, yes.
Go stop.
Tibbet, yes.
Tibbet, and Small.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Not me.
8 in the affirmative.
Motion to adjourn.
Drive down the park. Drive down the park.